right, great. All right, call the meeting to order, please. Judy, take the roll.
Neil Butnick.
Here.
Judy Neville. Tom Schulte.
Here.
Amy Carroll. Here. Todd Lavieri.
Here.
Michael Chen.
Here.
Chris Labrie.
Here.
Victor Alvarez.
Here.
Maria Weingarten. Here. Robert Hamill.
Here.
Colin Dobbin.
Here.
All present.
All right, thank you. And the first selectman?
Not. All right,
All right.
we'll add him too. All right.
Okay, thank you. So motion to approve the minutes from the March 1st meeting.
So moved.
Second? Second? Victor? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? Okay, so moved. Okay. Since this is a public hearing, maybe make a little bit of an introduction, although I think people will start to join over the next 15 minutes or so. So we will have a few housekeeping items that we've got to go through and get done. We will then read the public notice. We've got Ann is going to give us a little bit of an update on the pension. Then we're going to open it up to public comment, and Tucker will go through the guidelines. I think we've agreed 2 minutes per person. I'd like to remind everybody this is a budget meeting only, Board of Finance meeting only. It's not a WPCA meeting. We will have an open meeting later this month on the 751 Weed Street construction project, but tonight is not the night to bring those comments to this board. This is not what tonight's meeting is all about. So that meeting's March 29th here, 7 o'clock. It's publicly noticed. And so we will welcome all comment and input at that point. But for tonight's meeting, this is all about the budget that we need to approve and send on to the town council. Then we've got some work to do. We've got to get clarity on capital items, on a couple of budget items, some open switches from the last meeting. We'll resolve all that. Then we will be able to finalize the number. Josh, I'll have you come up. We'll make sure we've got everything buttoned up. Then we'll vote on it, the actual numbers, and then move it to the town council. Okay. With that, let's see. We have 2 ARPA special appropriation requests. Who's covering the ARPA? You covering that? Okay. So Amy, you want to walk us through the two requests? I know for sure the emergency generator we talked about in the last meeting, but why don't you go ahead and give everybody an update?
Okay, so I guess these are the recommendations that are coming from the select board. The subcommittee between Board of Finance and Town Council went through a bunch of, we've done this before, the parameters of what we reject, what we thought was important in terms of use of ARPA funds. And so this subcommittee has not looked at these 2 appropriations. We did at the time, we had in a lower versus the ones that the select board placed, we had underneath that projects that we didn't feel were used, for lack of better words, ready for prime time or needed additional information. The generator is something that just came forward, and we brought it up last week at the Board of Finance. That definitely fits in terms of, I think I can speak for the subcommittee in terms of spirit and purpose of the ARPA funds are for. When we had met as a group, the request in terms of the Powerhouse renovation, we did not put it as a priority in terms of the use of ARPA funds, but our subcommittee has not met on that. So
what do you say? Do you want to move on the generator, and you want to
that's what I would recommend.
Defer the Powerhouse to our next meeting?
Yeah, and in the Powerhouse, I think it's in combination with our discussions from the Board of Finance last week in terms of capital projects that we felt made sense to consider in this current budget process. And
if you're not ready to present it, or if you're not behind it and supporting it.
Yeah, no, I would not, but I would definitely move forward with the generator. I think that's an excellent use of funds.
Okay. Well, let's have a motion, take it separately. A motion to approve the $125,000 for the replacement of the Lapham Center emergency generator using the ARPA funds. Right?
Can I move?
Yeah. You want to move that?
Second.
Amy, please. Judy, second. All in favor? Aye.
Right.
And what would you like to have for a proposal for the Powerhouse renovation?
I would say we table it at this point.
Table at this point and bring it forward.
Well,
once you meet.
Why don't I circle back with the town council subcommittee members and look at it.
Have they seen it yet either?
I think all we've seen is if you followed kind of the presentations by the selectmen that it was.
Oh,
okay. It's not ready to be approved, then we can't.
But in terms of the list that we had put forward, it was not put in a priority.
Okay. Okay, so I need a motion to table that until you work with town council to come back with a recommendation.
I'll move to table.
Amy, second.
Second.
Tom, okay, all in favor? Opposed? Abstain? None? Okay. Okay. All right, Judy, would you read the public hearing notice?
Notice and warning, Town of New Canaan, Board of Finance public hearing on 2022 to 2023 budget. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing and vote will be held by the Board of Finance of the Town of New Canaan in the Town Hall Meeting Room and via Zoom on Tuesday, March 8th, 2022 at 7 p.m. on the tentative budget recommendations for the town and the sewer utility for fiscal year July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023.
Okay. All right, well, thanks, Judy. Let me just give everybody an update on where we are with the budget, and then I'll turn it over to Ann, who's going to do the retirement plan input from the advisory committee. And then I believe we'll be ready to have public comment. Tucker, I'm just asking you, are you keeping track? Are people signing in with you here?
I've got a list here, and anybody, I'll go through anybody who wants to join on.
Okay, but
If
you,
would like to speak, there's
Yeah.
a sign up sheet right there.
okay, so on this table, if you'd like to speak, put your name here. You could fill the sheet out, but that's where we'll have that. We'll start there and then we'll go online from there. Okay, great. So just to give everybody a status as to where we are, in summary, after 4 years of keeping the amount of money we've raised by taxes flat, we've met some cost pressures in our budget. We've worked to reduce these costs, and we've reduced approximately 3.8 million since we started this process back in November, December. So I really want to thank all the departments, those that are here and represented in those in the Board of Finance, for all the work they've done thus far, and it's been a lot. Right now, and we're going to work on this after the public comment, so these numbers could change. But right now, where we are is that we're showing a 4.58 increase in our year-over-year expenses, driven by higher labor, higher material, and higher health expenses. We're also projecting higher revenues of 4.9, so up 4.9% in revenues. All of that translates into an increase in the mill rate of 1.48 at this time. As I said, we've got some work to do to just tweak that today, but that's where we are prior to those final steps. I'll remind everybody, obviously, the town council picks this up from here. We'll continue to monitor things, evaluate things as we get closer to our final vote in May, when we get the budget back from the town council, and that's when we'll set the final mill rate. Just to let you all know, this budget does meet the needs and all the operating requests of the Board of Ed, Emergency Services, and all town departments. We've prioritized and we have approved capital requests for the town as well. And again, there are some things that we need to finalize tonight. Now, not all of those requests are completely filled out. They're not completely final. We've got placeholders for certain items. If you've been here listening to our meetings over the last month or so, many of them aren't ready to bond yet. They're not ready to send to the town council for approval. But what they do have, after some due diligence and other follow-ups that we need, is generally our support for the projects. And we've put earmarked capital and identified them for those projects. So I'd just like to add one more time, this is not a WPCA meeting. We're not taking input tonight for 751 Weed Street. If anyone has that as something that they wanted to talk about, that'll be March 29th. And at that point, we will have an open meeting and we'll take input. So with that, I will just see, are there any people that would like to, oh no, I'm sorry, let's go to Ann first, then we'll do public hearing. Go ahead, public comments, right? And you wanted to give us an update on the Opeb changes in the pension discussion you had?
Correct. The RPAC met, or good evening, board members. The RPAC met last week to discuss some changes in the reporting of the Opeb and pension in regards to the actuarial study that's done. As you may know, we do it every 2 years. The decision has been made that we will do a full actuarial census data on each of those plans every 2 years, and that's a full actuarial. And then in between those years, we do what's called, or the Hucker and Holcomb will do what's called a rollover. They take the census data they had from the last full one and roll it forward with the current values of the plan. The board, or the RPAC, accepted the rollover that Hucker and Holcomb did for us for July 1st, 2021. That wouldn't have been a normal year, but they did a rollover as of that point to accept it. It had a budgetary impact to us. From a pension side, it took our ADAC, our actuarially required employer contribution, down from 1.7 to about 1.1, which gave us a savings of 600,000. And that was due because of the fund itself grew by 30 million in the year. On the OPEB side, that trust grew $5 million. So in doing the roll forward, we were able to eliminate the ADAC, the required contribution, which was 177,000 originally budgeted. It has now come out. And in addition, we're actually going to take 150,000 in retiree expenses that we currently pay from the budget will now go against the trust. So in essence, it's taking $300,000 out of the budget and giving us those additional savings. So between the two, we have about 900 in doing that now doing it every year. One is a full scope, which will happen July 1st, 2022. And the board or the RPAC committee agreed to take the July 1st, 2021 rollover. So it had a significant savings on our budget. So I'd ask for any questions from the board.
Any questions? So you have those assumptions in this working. Okay, so we have that in the model that we've got. This, okay.
Correct.
Any questions? You don't need us to vote on anything. That's already been done by the committee.
No, the RPAC is the one to vote. It's to inform this board of the change. In accepting that report, it had a budgetary change. So the Board of Finance needed to know and understand that.
Perfect. Anybody?
Oh, that's a good.
Very clear. No, thanks. I know you've been working on that. Okay. Anything else, Ann?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
So is that the list? Okay.
Well, go ahead.
Is-
I think there's no one on the, is there anybody on the list? Oh, two people on the list. Excellent, good. Okay, so one other item I'd like to add though, right before the comments, and I just want to make sure everybody's clear about one thing that we made, and then we have the Joanne Keating, Dr. Lutzy, and Katrina here. So you may remember that there was a difference of opinion on the Board of Ed and the Board of Finance on health expenses. Just to review the status of everybody, Board of Ed was asking for 14.68 million in health expenses, up 64%. Our analysis thought that it was more like 13.38. So we had about a difference of $1.3 million where we were apart. We met on Friday to discuss this. Very productive, thoughtful meeting. A lot of good ideas came out of it. And so what we concluded was this: the Board of Ed wants to make sure that they have an adequate budget to meet their assumptions. The Board of Finance, of course, we want that, of course, but we also want to minimize what we tax the taxpayers. We also want to make it very clear, we expect and will pay 100% of the actual health expenses. Of course, we don't know what those are and won't until, probably 18 months from now. So here's what we proposed. We proposed that we fund the projected health expense budget and minimize the amount we charge the taxpayers by doing a couple of things. The Board of Ed suggested, and we agreed, to assign the unspent funds from the early start time expense that was in the budget of $463,000 to cover a portion of the $1.3 million gap. That leaves us with $836,000 rounding. We propose to take that remaining amount of $836,000 out of the town's general fund and assign it to funds directly to the town side of the corridor, the health corridor, assign it to the Board of Ed health expense in the reserve corridor. Currently, we have about 1.7 million in that reserve fund in the corridor. We would propose that we take that up to about 2.6. So the incremental 836 will be assigned for health expenses. If the Board of Ed needs some or all of those incremental expenses, they'll be there. Obviously, we won't know that for 12 to 14 months from now. If they don't need those funds or any portion of those funds, we would just return those back to the general fund at the end of next year. So either way, the Board of Ed the budgeted amount is covered, and we don't have to tax the taxpayers for this potentially $836,000 expense. So we also know the actuaries will be finalizing their projections over the next 2 months. So we recommend we approve this proposal And if we need to make some final adjustments based on final projections, we can do so in the May timeframe. I think we both agree that it's fair, it's transparent, it's supportive, it's a great compromise. Both parties get what they're aiming for. I will say, I think I can say I speak for you. We have your support to do this move, and we appreciate the effort that we did to get there. So, any questions or?
So I think the question also was in August, when we have the
Right.
aggregate stop loss finalized,
Right.
then the 40% be covered in that at that time.
So how would we do that? Well, do we have to do that anyway?
She should come.
Right? Yeah. Why don't you come up here to the microphone? So every year we have that question, right?
Yeah.
Every year we have that question. That wouldn't change.
Right. So just, as Katrina joined. Hello, thank you for the invite again. Good to be here. Always start that way, right?
Right now, we don't have
Nothing
anything
you'd rather do,
scheduled for
Brian.
next week.
Glad to be here. Yeah, we're good.
The good news is we have nothing scheduled for next week.
That's right. That's right. Town council picks up for you.
Oh, yeah.
But no, our question is simply this, and absolutely, we had a good conversation even today about this. One other step that we were thinking was so in May, we have our aggregate stop loss number, right? So we'll know what the amount of that 20% corridor is.
Right.
And because that really is determined, certainly Joe doing his work, but there's whoever the vendor is going to come up with their own number, their own calculation, you know, what have you. So we'll know exactly what that corridor is. So at that point, what we're thinking is we would look at where we are with what's in the internal services fund. We'd be able to close out our year in June 30th. So we'll get an actual account of sort of where we fall, where the balances are. And then we'd come back to you to talk about truing up to the 40%
Totally supportive.
where, you know, in the ISF based on the actuals.
I think we would do that anyway on a normal year. I think there's no reason why that would change. Anyway.
Right, because we certainly understand why we wouldn't want to reserve based on the budgeted numbers, because we know those are itemized estimates best. This way, we're using the actuals in the fund, the actuals from the aggregate stop loss vendor. We have the real numbers, and we say, okay, here's the corridor, here's that. And then we look to see where we are, and here's the difference, and we true up on that 40% in the
think that's
ISF.
fair. Yep. You good with
And
that?
so one of the
good.
things you asked us how we would do that through a special appropriation.
So that's how, if you went and got the 836, that's what you're saying?
If it's that number.
That would be, right, that would be a special appropriation, and it
We
would
think
be
so,
in the,
yeah.
who knows when timeframe, but yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
August or
okay,
whatever.
okay.
Yeah.
So we would take the 836 out of the corridor
Mhm.
and add it to the budget at that point. If they come back in May and say, or in June and say the actual numbers are,
It'll probably be July or August, I think, because we'll give the actuarial numbers, but we also want to true up the account so we can say,
Got to have the.
here's where we ended the
six-
year.
2 months
So we-
after the
so-
bills are
so-
in, right? I mean,
so July, August.
Yep.
So the 836 that we're currently adding to the town side of the corridor.
Yeah.
Potentially could be
moved over.
moved over as part of the budget.
Or some of it or all of it. Or,
Right, and then maybe it's less, maybe it's more, and then the remainder,
I think
if it is less, goes away.
I
and-
understand what you're saying. It's the portion of the 836 that those numbers in August tell us need to be moved over.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
we'll actually now no longer be
That's
guessing.
the right word.
We're gonna know.
that's right, we'll have the
So
actual
in the
numbers
past where
on.
We
Yep.
did it based on budget numbers. That's what the policy said.
Mhm.
We suggested to our board last night that we
Okay.
just take the actual numbers
Yep.
and they are what they are.
Yep.
And we'll
Okay.
come back and take
So
measure
when,
at that time.
Mhm.
just to be clear, so when we say true up, when we do the 836 now, we're going to have a mismatch. It's going to be an 80-20 kind of. Or
the quarter,
25,
quarter will be
75.
distorted with
Will
more
be
on the town
distorted,
side.
yes.
Yeah.
So in July, we want to go back to 80-40,
60-40.
60-40, right? And we're going to take the 836. That'll be the number that's in play, part of all of it.
That's right, and if it's a little bit down, then that money would be
Either or.
returned to the general fund,
So we don't have to wait 18 months.
and your
to,
60% wouldn't be what we're calculating it to
we
be,
wouldn't have to. We
and
get
vice
money
versa,
back.
right?
Or vice versa.
And there's always the chance that the actuarial numbers are so out of whack that they need a supplemental, but then we're committed to fund all the.
Well, we're doing
the
it
healthcare,
anyway.
We're
so
doing
gonna
that
do it
anyway.
We're paying them all.
But because once we know that 20%, right? We know that real corridor. We know that if it's over 120% of claims, it's covered by the aggregate. So we would be, so the risk is covered.
The risk is covered.
Okay, so the
It's such a
836
big
basically
number.
Gets us through the budget process
Yeah.
until July. or
And if
August.
we need it appropriated, we'll do it.
Yep. And then as we go, as you know, we talked about before, when we go before the town council, typically between the first and second meeting with them, we're able to do, Joe has enough months of claims to do another projection.
Okay.
And if those numbers are up a little or down a little at that point, we'll be talking to the town council about that too. And sometimes we're able to say, we come down a little bit through the process. So there may be a little bit of savings there, depending on the trends and what the numbers are looking like.
Time's our friend because we get more certain every month, which
Right.
that's.
Joe used to talk
that's
about the
point.
hurricane model,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
And
right.
and is it right to think, maybe Ann or Josh know this, but is it right to think that if there is a portion of the 836 that's not needed, the right way to think about it is we're not returning anything, we're simply rendering that portion to no longer be assigned.
Exactly.
It's unassigned. It
Exactly.
goes back to
That's a good
Nobody's
way-
returning.
that's a good way to
Unassigned portion
say
of
it.
general
That's a
fund,
better way
yeah.
to say it. It goes from being assigned to that health expense corridor to unassigned back to the, okay.
The
Yeah.
general fund. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess this process keeps us from over reserving,
Over reserve.
basically. So we get to really
Yeah.
put in what you need.
Yep.
And I think
If we're right, it would over reserve. If we're wrong, then they
we
get the
under
budget.
reserved and we just do it. Yeah,
Exactly.
so
This
this
may
is
be
just
an
what it is.
excellent process to do in budget.
You're gonna need a new chairman. You're gonna need a new chairman.
If this works so
Well.
smoothly, we won't even have to negotiate behind the scenes when you get it all done.
Oh, we shouldn't, it's just what it is.
I am so happy. It looks so smooth. Are you, Katrina? How awesome is that? I mean, that's like a win-win. All right.
I think that's great.
All right,
Yep.
we have a plan. That's
just
to
have-
avoid 900,000 of taxes here and,
Yep.
and we may assign it as a special appropriation. And Steve is here. I won't speak for the town council, of course, but it's for health expenses. So we know we'll be.
So in the fully funded DOE number that you vote on tonight, it will reflect the 836 that's just being held.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, exactly.
It's like a set aside.
Yeah.
Everybody gets that. Yeah.
Yes, it is. The 836 will be out of the general fund and assigned to that assigned fund.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, great. Very smoothly done. All right.
What do you do without late night phone calls?
I don't know. Okay, thank you, everybody. All right, so you have the list of people who are coming to speak?
Are we?
Why don't you just, call their name up and you want them here at the podium?
Come up and
Oh, here's even better with this
Connie
microphone.
Fitzgerald. Connie, you wanted to speak?
Okay.
Yeah, otherwise can't
People
really
at
hear
home
you
need
on
to hear
the,
you. So if you could just sit in that chair, that would be great.
there's probably 27 people on TV watching this, so I mean, you gotta
Oh,
really.
there's more than that.
It's sweeps week.
Hi, I'm Connie Fitzgerald, and I'm here to talk about the plan for Boardwalk in Irwin Park by the Garden Club. And just a little background, I've been living in New Canaan for 14 years. I've been pretty active in CERT for the last several years. And I have 2 golden retrievers. And we spend probably 6 out of 7 days a week in Irwin Park. And I just love the park. I love the daffodils, which I actually saw just beginning to come up today. It's a fabulous park, and I think I know most of the dogs there, although probably not most of the people. And I've seen the plans for the boardwalk, and it seems to open up a whole new area of the park. We were walking there today and I was looking at it, and there's probably 30% of the park that nobody ever sees. And this would create an opportunity to open that. It would increase the length of the walks that you could take there and certainly the diversity of it. It also would bypass one of the treacherous parts of the walk in the winter, because there's a couple places back there where the ice just forms and won't leave. And this boardwalk might get us past a piece of that. We spent a couple of winters just walking around the parking lots of the churches because there was nowhere to walk the dogs in the winter. And Irwin Park is just a blessing. I think it's one of the most awesome pieces of New Canaan, and one of the reasons we love living here. And I just wanted to say that the Garden Club is doing an amazing job. In fact, we started walking there right after the pandemic, And I guess that was right after the garden club had put in the flex pavers and created that wonderful path all around there. So my dogs love it. We wish they'd bring the goats back, but every dog that we know, people who are just happy walking around there. It's a great park. And I just think this would enhance it in a way that would make the town better. So thank you for letting me speak.
Great, thank you. Aren't the goats seasonal?
They're
Tiger?
done,
Goats?
3 years, they're done.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
no, now it's all.
We're trying to get them
maintenance.
back.
I think Tiger would too.
Thank you.
Tricia, Scavani?
Goats bite somebody?
Everybody cleans everything out. I think any one of them will be.
They all
good.
work.
I think they're all good, yeah.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me address the Board of Finance. I'm Patricia Spagani. I am vaccinated, but I have a good old fashioned common cold, so I chose to wear a mask and come in person. So I represent the town players of New Canaan. I've been a resident of New Canaan for 28 years. I'm adding up in my head. It's a long time. I love living in town. And I'm on the board of the town players. I'm also, for the last 4 years, have been the resident lighting designer. So brushing off old skills from college that I'm really enjoying, contributing to the cultural environment in this town. And I've personally found that the town players and the Powerhouse Theater in particular as a facility is one of the finest, if not the finest, community theater in Fairfield County. I'm very proud of being a member, and I'm thrilled to carry on a tradition, a long tradition of bringing live entertainment, live quality theater to this community that began 75 years ago. We're in our 75th season. And the Powerhouse Theater, as you probably are all aware, was converted into a performing arts center into the theater that's there in Waveney Park in 1983. And at the time that the theater was, or that the building was turned into a theater, there was a plan to convert the current courtyard into an expanded lobby. And as I know Tiger has communicated with all of you, and I think as I've presented to many of you last fall, our plans were to convert, to do a couple of things at the same time for the building, which is the proposal that you're all considering, that the town is considering. So we're asking the town to continue, well, to agree, re-agree, reconfirm the agreement that we had in 1984 to enclose the courtyard and expand our lobby, which is much needed, especially in these days of people wanting to be able to social distance. The current lobby is woefully inadequate for the 115 seat theater that we have. So people always go outside, and we know we need the space. We also desperately need to have ADA compliant restrooms. The restrooms we have were met whatever standard was in place in the 80s, but definitely is not applicable now, as my 95-year-old mother knows when she comes and tries to use the restroom. It just doesn't work. So in addition, as we went through the planning process, preliminary planning process with Tiger and the town's architects, everything kind of progressed. We worked very closely with Tiger and said, you know, we need a better plan. We need a better plan. We need a better plan. And Tiger said, well, at the same time, we know in this portion of Waveney Park, there's also a desperate need to have ADA compliant restrooms available to the public. Because we know people knock on our door all the time and say, can we come use your restroom? We know, watching folks at the sledding hill, people come and ask us again, where can we go to use a restroom? So we really think it's important that we have the ability to have both public restrooms in that campus, if you will, as well as make our own restrooms ADA compliant. So with all of that planning, we agreed with Tiger that it would be in our best interest if we approached one architect to work with us. So we've been working with Carl and Rose Rothbart, and the town players incurred an expense of $60,000 to work with them for the purpose of getting us to build ready diagrams. So we expect to have those ready for builder to give us firm bids by the end of May. So that's where we are. We're moving forward with the support of Tiger and looking to at least know then what the exact costs would be. And we have funding to be able to do that already. So we really are excited about the opportunity. The other thing that came up as we worked with Tiger and Carl, the Rothbarts, was the idea of taking on the potting shed as a portion of the Powerhouse Performing Arts Center, is that campus. Because one of the things that we know we need to do, myself, Rich Kompanek, my husband Joel Reynolds, and the other board members, is we know that we need to make this theater more relevant to the town. It's served the population very well, but in the past, I would say 10 to 15 years, it's aging out. Our population of patrons are aging out, and we know we need to be more current. So to that extent, we have proactively engaged, as well as been the recipients of people coming in and working with us to develop new student programs.
We have 2
And I'll be
minutes.
very quick.
Okay, let me just
Yes.
ask one question.
Sure.
Tucker, how many people do we have to speak?
I don't know. No one's raised their hand yet. There could be none.
Okay,
Give me,
you get extra time.
no, I don't want extra time. I want to be to the
Here's what I'd
point.
like to know this. I want to make sure you're clear on one thing, that on the ARPA funds, the process is the selectman's office puts together their proposal. Then it
Absolutely.
goes to what was it we'd created a year ago
Yes.
or whatever it was, the committee of town council, board of finance people to go vet them and think about them and lots of requests and so forth. That's why that hasn't come to us yet from approved from them.
I understand.
You
And
want to
I-
take 1 minute on that? And did you want to?
And I will do that. So
Okay.
I'm approaching all of you because I listened to the recording from last week. And it seemed that there were a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And you all this morning or this evening earlier said you had a lot of questions. So I wanted to take the opportunity to give you a little bit of background firsthand, because I'm here, we have a model, we have a plan. I'd really like to, just represent that. And to say, invite all of you to come to the theater and see what we're planning to do. And to Amy and the subcommittee,
Yeah.
especially, please come and see what we're about so that we can answer your questions.
Yeah, we'll do that. We will do
Right.
that for sure. Yeah, there's no decision one way or the other. So don't feel
Right.
like you're,
Understand.
not
but
getting it approved or anything. We
Take
just-
the opportunity. From last week's meeting, quite honestly, I had several members of the community reach out to me and say, can you, it's unfortunate, Patricia, you weren't there.
Sure.
Where are you? So I wanted to kind of go on record as well.
Okay.
So thank you.
Well,
for
we'll
that.
just have you come back. I mean, I think that's when we get through and work with Tiger and understand the whole campus and the whole. request.
Exactly. But meanwhile, I can tell you from your colleagues who have come and visited on the board, Board of Selectmen and the town council,
Mhm.
that seeing the building in person, even though we all think we know what Waveney looks like and what that part of the campus looks like, coming and seeing and really feeling the space will be
Okay.
helpful.
All right.
So from.
Do
one of
what-
go
do you have
to,
somebody on,
Donna
Tucker?
White.
you have somebody on?
So I'll
Ask and
just.
tell them. We haven't
So-
announced to them yet that what they need to do. We started with the people in the room.
Oh, okay.
So if we'll just explain here, we have a model of our design. So Joel, if you could take the roof off, please. So this model was actually done for the same purpose, to educate the town elders in 1983 what the converted powerhouse would look like. The Rothbarts took and extended this model to represent what the new proposed lobby and restroom, public restroom, where they would sit in the building. So Joel, over here we have the extended lobby, which would enclose the, right, which would enclose the courtyard, the cement courtyard, and the shed building on the corner. Rather than turning it into a public restroom, we propose to take it on for rehearsal space and to be the headquarters for what we envision as our new youth education, theater arts education program. That's really a key piece of our whole, what we need to re-envision the town players as a community theater is. And then at the end of our current annex, there would be the new public restrooms for the courtyard. And we envision the whole courtyard to be also truly ADA accessible and not just sort of working for people who have wheelchairs or walkers, but to actually be very functional as an outdoor space and courtyard for not only the theater, but any visitor to that portion of the.
Okay, I really do have to ask you to, because we only have 2
We're
minutes
done.
for everybody, and
That's
that's a
it.
lot of time. I love that you brought this. This is great. You have our commitment to keep looking into how, what the whole plan is, what the ARPA contribution, what needs to be done. We'll work with Tiger. You'll need to work with the town council too, of course. But I don't want to give you 9
know-
minutes and then the next person, when we cut them
I'm-
off after 2, they're going to get mad at me, which, you know, I get
I'm
a lot of
done. I
emails.
just thank you for the opportunity to address the Board of
This
Finance.
is great.
And if we're done with this, then we'll get this out of your way.
That's perfect. You can leave it there, but it's I appreciate that update too. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Todd.
you. Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Thank you.
All right, Tucker, you want to let everybody know?
So if
Yep.
there's anybody on Zoom that would like to speak, we would ask that you would make sure that your name is reflected in your little box there, and that you would raise your virtual hand and let us know. I have yet to see anybody raise their hand, so I'm hoping that you all know. Oh, we've got one there. Hold on. Got the bite.
Hey, Kevin doesn't count. He can't.
Betty Lavastik would like to speak. Okay, Betty,
And 2 minutes. Tucker,
sorry,
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Oh.
Betty, you're up. Okay,
Okay, can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Betty Lavastik. I live at 69 Old Norwalk Road. And I wanted to speak about the Boardwalk project in Irwin Park. I'm a resident of New Canaan for over 24 years. I regularly attend town meetings. I Zoom in. And when I can't do either of those, I watch it on Channel 79. For over 2 decades, I regularly attended the Park and Rec Commission meetings, and I work with the commissioners on various projects. And it was at last month's meeting that I had the opportunity to watch 2 members, co-chairs of the Irwin Park. I think it's the master plan of the garden, New Canaan Garden Club, give a presentation on Irwin Park. And I was so impressed. And I thought to myself, we're so fortunate to live here in New Canaan. We have such a dedicated group of volunteers that have worked tirelessly for over 15 years to make Irwin Park from a blank canvas to what it is today. And they have plans to move ahead, move forward on other projects to enhance this park. And I don't go to Irwin Park that often, but I understand the importance of having a boardwalk for people who can't walk very well when you have hazards in the topography of the parks. And I think this is a wonderful enhancement to Irwin Park. Each park is very important to us, but the title of the presentation was called Irwin Park Master Plan from a Private Estate to a Public Treasure. And I really feel, just like the first speaker said, this is very important. This will be utilized not just by neighbors, but by visitors. And it would really turn Irwin Park into a town treasure. So I hope the commissioners here, the board, will vote to approve the Boardwalk project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Betty.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else on Zoom that would like to speak? Seeing none, I guess that's it.
Wow, that's a record.
That's a record.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah. Not the Board of Ed.
All right, Tricia, you get 10 more. No. All right. Yeah, I know you take.
Well, we're
Yeah,
All right.
whole song
going
again.
to ask our questions, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So let's do this. Josh, why don't you come on down? I want to start with making sure we understand all the changes on the expense side. And I'd like to go through all the capital. We'll take it one at a time. Okay, we had a few changes. You want to tell everybody what they have in front of them?
Hi, everyone. So what you have in front of you is the most up-to-date version of the budgets and a couple clarifying pages as well. So the first page you're looking at is the overview of the expense side. Like Todd said, it's up 4.58% year over year. Page number 2 is the overview of the revenue side, which is up 4.9%.
That's right.
And the mill rate up 1.4948%. The third page is an overview of the capital as it stands right now. The capital is
Can we
fairly.
back up to the
Sure.
Let's hold off on capital. Let's
Sure.
get through all the expense,
All right.
make sure we've got the budget right.
just to make, so these numbers, just to make sure I understand what's incorporated in them.
Yes,
Does this incorporate the agreement we have with Board of Ed
yes,
of how we're going to fund?
it does.
So the 800,000,
Correct.
and this has their forward transfer of the savings from this year.
It does, yes.
All right.
That's more reflected on the fund balance side of things.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's, and then, okay, just wanted, so any other expenditure changes that we should focus on?
So.
Not capital expenditures that were.
Correct, right.
That change.
So if you turn to page 4, that's the summary of the changes that have kind of been made over this
Okay,
process.
all right,
There are
thanks.
changes that myself and Ann went over, I think it was last week with you guys.
Right.
The only change since then was the application of, I don't have the exact number, I think it's 757,000 more bond premium against tax supported capital projects.
Got it.
So you'll see a reduction, a total reduction of 1.18 million in terms of use of bond premium against tax supported capital projects, which was previously 423, I believe, 423,000.
Hey, Zach, this is very helpful. Just one thing on the last column, right? I think it's a great addition that we hadn't had before. Which looks at the actual we've just finished this past year, right? Versus 2 years budget, right? Because we don't have this year's. actual yet.
Sure.
So the latest actual, which was last year's actual.
Yep.
To the budget we're putting together this year. So it's very helpful. So I appreciate that. The thing is, I was wondering if you could change the percentages on that to be the IRR versus the 2-year growth. For example, the general fund budget you have grown 4%, which is correct, but 4% is really only 2% a year over 2 years. I think it's misleading people that don't
Right.
understand that.
That's a good point.
Right, yeah.
We really
Sure.
managed the budget to only a 2% growth
Yeah.
over 2 years.
Sure.
That's good.
So,
That's
and
a good
that's,
point, yeah.
and the mill rate, for example, is not up 1.5% over 2 years, it's only up an average of 0.7% over 2 years. So we've really managed the budget even better than
Yeah.
reflected here. So I just.
Yeah,
think
that's a good point. Yeah, I'll make that correction.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
So let's go through all the expense. I guess the question is, does anyone have any questions on this page? This is the summary of the changes page. We went through this last week. If there are any other changes on that, that does yield to just what we're just covering, a mill rate of 18.43. Expenses of 161,583 up 4.6%.
And, okay, so that mill rate, where we are now with the assumed contribution from the general fund,
Of
right?
5 million
Okay,
and a 98.5 collection rate.
right, but I think it's important to realize that we're really also, if not appropriating, segregating another 800,000 from the general fund until we true up. Because if we had funded it in a more traditional way, we would have had $800,000 more. So just, from our general fund, we have plenty, it's appropriate, but I think we should be cognizant of it. So that the drawdown's now 5 million, it's potentially 5.8 million, which it won't be.
Which won't be, but that's right.
So,
That's right. Should we go through capital? talk about?
Maybe one just quick thing. So I see, and maybe Josh, you're going to get to this later, but you will talk us through where, after giving effect to the assignment of the 863 or whatever that number is, where we're left in terms of the general fund and what portion is assigned and what portion is unassigned, so that we can all, remember, that's a measure of comfort that this board takes. So that there's a page for that, but I just want to make sure that we don't.
So
Wanna go there?
We can go now, or you can do it after the capital. It seems appropriate to get there now.
So I think you're probably referring to the page that says general fund.
Yeah.
So that may be slightly misleading, I guess, with the title. That's more of a comparison of the change of contribution from fund balance to the mill rate.
Right. But remember, we always get comfortable with the level of the contribution from the general fund to sort of buy down the mill rate when we were kind of get a good guesstimate or feel of what portion of the general fund is unassigned and which is assigned. And of course, we had this.
So your projection says it's 19.38 million in the budget, right? Which is on page 2, total fund balance.
Yeah.
Right, but that's, my gut is that 19 is lower than what realistically we're budgeting, because you're projecting our year-end balance at the end of 2022 to be 24. And I think we mentioned that we don't think it'll be 24.
26.
It'll be 26, right? You think?
Yeah.
So we think it'd be 26, then the Board of Finance recommended fund balance would be around 21. Right? Because we end up at 21.
Right. Correct.
At 26, and we take 5 out.
Right.
It's 21.
Right.
Correct.
But that is, so that 21, okay? Does that include the $2.5 million that is assigned for our health insurance?
It does. I believe it does.
That would be our net, okay, so.
The total assigned and unassigned fund balance.
So of that 21, I think that's what Tom's gonna, how much is assigned and how much is unassigned?
I believe it's probably might be 3.5 assigned with that equity, because right now it's 2.8 assigned. And if you add.
Okay, that's okay. Of the entire general fund, all we have assigned is 1.8.
No, it's 2.8.
2.8, excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah.
About 3.5.
Okay.
Yep.
So that will go to 3.6.
We have some room.
We got a little room. Yeah, so
So
that's
so
fine.
that goes to 3.6.
Correct.
So you take, so you're gonna take 836 out of the unassigned and move it to assigned, basically, right?
I believe so, yeah.
So the only
So
assignment is for
two-way.
the health.
Yeah.
That's assigned.
I believe so, yeah.
For the
Right.
avoidance of doubt. Okay.
Yeah, the only formal assignment. I mean, the assumption is we need the 10%
15.8 or something.
and then whatever we're gonna use the next year to
Josh,
buy down the rate.
where was that money? I'm trying to,
On here?
health, it's not here. Where was that? Because we talked about it. Where was that?
Josh, I can take that if you want.
That's somewhere, yeah.
So the assigned number that he gave you in regards to the 2 million plus, that includes the 1.7 already for the 60% and some other miscellaneous assignments. So the 800 would come from at the end of the year, we would take the unassigned balance at that point and assign it. It's not in the 2 million that Josh had mentioned. That's the original 60. So we would add to that and take it from the unassigned.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
So that's why it would go up from 2.8 to 3.6. And the unassigned balance would go down to 15.7 plus about 2 million more because it's underestimated. So unassigned amount would be about 17.
17.
change.
Yeah, 17 change.
Right.
I'm trying to find.
Josh, on the 5.2 that you have as approved for this year,
Oh, it's pulling down the 5.
5260,
5260, yep.
what is your actual, what's the current projection?
3.2, right? You said.
Yeah, something like 3.2, yeah. That hasn't changed since we.
Oh, from this year.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting-
That's how we get that's how we get the 2 million more. We're not going to use the 5.2. We're going to use only about 3.2.
And we just roll it every year. Yeah.
I'm surprised we're using that much.
Yeah,
I thought we had more.
it's somewhere.
That surprises me.
I'm just trying to remember where it is.
We had more revenue than
Yeah.
expected and less expense. I think that was, we were thinking we would only use 2.
We had this discussion.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
We did.
I
I
just-
thought we were,
Annie and Josh might be just a little conservative, that's all.
yeah. I thought we
Well,
were close to
it
like
matters.
27, 28.
It matters. So, I mean, are you being really conservative on 3 million? Or where are we on this? I mean, is
I think where we landed was somewhere around 2.5,
this, okay.
2 to 3.
But if I press. Me too.
Finance guys.
All right. I think that's important to know, though.
But in 2021, we actually used 5.4.
Now, the overage on the expense for the 98.5 is now $2 million, people.
Yeah, the overage on what?
So we're budgeting, we have $2 million just by budgeting 98.5
Yep.
coming back.
Yep,
Yeah.
which is good.
Don't forget that.
Yeah.
That leaves us possibly using 3, although I don't know where that would come from. Well, we have another choice if people feel like that's tight. I'm not sure I do, but if you do, we don't need to do 18.43. We could do 18.49 and do 1.8 and use 4.5 million from the fund, not 5. Just use the line above the shaded line. Could use use $500,000 less.
Where would you get the other half?
What?
Where would we get the other half? if We don't use that.
Just don't use it. Well, the mill rate would go up.
No worries. Yeah. It's just
But I
like-
think
Yeah,
we'd
more
be-
revenue.
Yeah,
It
but I
seems
think
like
we'd be conservative. Why would we increase? the
I'm
mill
just
rate?
saying.
I was gonna look the line
I
down
think
below.
I'm not. That's why we have these meetings, right? That's perfect.
But we are functionally at the line below because we're
Okay.
transferring the 800,000.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
So functionally we are.
Okay. All right, well, why don't we, those are our assumptions. That's kind of the way the model works now, so.
Anne, has this changed since our other discussion, our last discussion on this?
The financials?
No, this piece of it.
Which piece?
The fund balance.
The coming back, the 2 million, and it was 3. We thought we had more. Where was that? I was on that sheet.
Well, let's use Josh's 3 million.
Yep.
Use
Let's just use
and
that
go
for now.
with it
I do think we
tonight.
need to look into
Yeah.
that for sure, because
Yeah,
but anyway,
I
I
know
think we're gonna spend
fine.
less. All right,
Yeah,
But-
but the point is that at the end of the day, no matter which number we're at, we seem to be comfortably above that
yes, that's the question.
10% of the operating budget number is unassigned, not just the total, the unassigned balance. So I think we're good. We have room.
Mhm.
That's important for us all to understand.
Yeah, no, good point. Okay, I just want to make sure we're all in agreement on what we're moving on capital. If there are any more questions on that. So, Josh, where's the list of the open questions? We don't need to go through everything. We went through all of it last week, but there were some open questions.
So I don't have a list in front of you, but I have a list in front of me.
Okay, all
I
right.
have a
As long as you have someone on the list.
So
How many items is it roughly?
It's not many.
5 or 6.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
let's
not
take
many.
them right at the top.
So I guess the first probably would be the police station,
Yes.
and whether to keep that at 10 or raise it to the full 17, which is what's planned over
Yep.
2 years.
I think
Discussion?
that's fine,
Discussion, 17?
Yeah, most importantly, we need it in because this is a huge priority. So it's just an expression of, I think, priority, and then we figure out.
It's a good example of, we don't have final numbers, we don't have anything approved at the moment, but we do want to earmark money. We want to send a message that we want to do this project. And I think we got some advice not to just take a number and split it in half over 2 years. Just let's have a reasonable number, and 17 was as reasonable as we've seen. So I think that's the question on the table. Any comments, discussion, agreements, disagreements? You go with that?
I'm good with it.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
we need to
Victor,
keep
anything?
Marco.
Chris?
Yeah, I agree.
Right thing to
Makes
do.
sense. 17.
Right thing to do.
Michael? Okay, we got a lot of head nodding. Let's move on. What's the next one?
Sure. The Powerhouse Theater, the 250,000.
For capital or
ARPA?
for?
Is that
For capital.
For capital.
Correct. Maybe
I think, why don't,
Tiger could give a little clarity on what that encompasses.
yeah, why don't we?
Got a model for it?
So the police department was 17 and a half, by the way.
17 and a
Thank
half,
you.
sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, okay.
Um,
Among friends. Among friends.
That changes everything.
So I sent the memo today. Hopefully you're able to see it and hopefully provide a little bit of clarity as to how the process worked all the way through, or actually the development of the project and where we are at present. So you already made a determination at present that the ARPA funding is, will have to be reviewed by Board of Finance and the Town Council liaisons. There is still $250,000 that was approved by the Board of Selectmen as a capital contribution towards the Powerhouse lobby expansion. So there was a $250,000, as mentioned in the memo, there's a $250,000 for ARPA funding for outdoor public bathrooms at Waveney at the Powerhouse campus, whether in the potting shed or in an annex to the existing Powerhouse Theater. That was yet to be determined.
Wasn't it initially for the I'm not gonna say potting shed location?
So-
That, when we talked about last year, right? We talked about.
Right, so the initial interpretation or the initial feeling at the time was in fiscal 22, we received $40,000 for design for the potting shed, for bathrooms in the potting shed.
Right.
But we still had this lingering issue with indoor bathrooms that are required at inside the, for the ADA for inside the Powerhouse. And we necessarily couldn't fit them without removing their office space and a good portion of the lobby. So the thought was at that point in time, now that the feeling was to bring the lobby expansion forward because that would settle that issue, meaning that we would be able to put the ADA bathrooms inside the Powerhouse, and then not lose office space and lobby, and then actually expand the lobby for their purposes. At that point in time, we joined forces. They contracted with the architect that we had on board already for the potting shed, took a review of the entire campus, and that's where the idea of annexing the bathrooms came to fruition. The overall cost, whether we put it in the potting shed, refurbish the potting shed, or we refurbish the potting shed for other uses and annex the bathrooms, is the exact same cost. $250,000 versus $260,000, but the $260,000 estimate was a little bit inflated, according to the architect, according to Carl. He thought that price would come down to $250,000. So we had $110,000 to refurbish the potting shed, the exterior, and put in the floor, and then $150,000 to annex bathrooms. 110 plus 150 gets you 260. The initial estimate was to put bathrooms inside that and refurbish the potting shed was an initial 250. So given the fact that the monies were very, very close, we could do either. We could put bathrooms inside the potting shed, or we could refurbish the potting shed for other uses and annex the bathrooms. So at that time, the ARPA funding was for outdoor public bathrooms at Waveney, basically unspecified as to their location. The council, Board of Selectmen approved it as is, Board of Finance approved it as is. The council put in a caveat that we will approve the money, but we have not yet approved the location. Because the council does have that designation underneath the Bach Amendment for use of town land. So they approved the funding since it was a package of all the ARPA funding at that time. They approved that funding, but they did not approve the location. So we're still at that point determining the location. So hopefully that answers that portion of the question. And then, as we mentioned, the town
Tiger,
players-
can I ask you a question? If we stay with the initial thought of taking the potting shed, the stone potting shed, and putting the bathrooms in, is that cost less than the 250 we gave you? I can't understand how that we can, it's confusing to me how it would be, we wouldn't have some savings if we just did it there.
I have to bring everything there. So I have to bring the water and effluent out from that location, whereby if I put the bathrooms inside the annex to the shed, I'm actually just bringing it through the building versus actually cutting up the flooring and bringing it all the way out to the and then cutting it through the potting shed itself. So I had the Rothbards draw up an estimate at the time that we came forward with our budget presentation for the 250. And that was their number at that time, estimating how much it would be to refurbish it and come forward. And it still is pretty close to that number at present, because there's a lot more work involved in bringing bathrooms out there, you know, water and actually removing the waste than is just refurbishing it then for either a black box theater, educational space, or what have you. The difference is a lot more work in that regard.
Tucker, what is the 40,000 for?
We were given 40,000 in fiscal 22 for the design of bathrooms.
That's spent?
Outdoor public bathrooms.
It's all spent.
Yes, it's under contract with the Rothbards, with their architectural preservation studio.
So,
How much,
no, go ahead. It's fine.
how much incremental expense is the black box theater? And if you didn't build the black box theater, what would be in its place in the potting shed?
Depending upon the use, if they were going to use it as a black box theater, you're adding lighting and things of that nature, it could be upwards of up to $200,000. If we didn't put bathrooms in the potting shed and annex the bathrooms, at present we don't have a use for the potting shed itself. So
What if you put bathrooms in there but didn't make it a black box theater?
Exactly.
you can do that as well. That was the original. It was the original idea, but then as we looked at it as an entire campus feel and trying to address the needs from the town players for educational space, rehearsal space, things of that nature, then it became clear that the use of the potting shed for their purposes might be better served than just for an outdoor bathroom, since we could, for about $150,000, annex it to the existing Powerhouse Theater and then put in bathrooms, so we would be able to satisfy our needs and then satisfy their growing needs.
So if you didn't do the black box theater, would there be a savings? If you just made the potting shed an ADA compliant bathroom?
That was Amy's question, and it's very close to, it would still be, I feel on the town side, it's still around $250,000.
It does keep us from adding yet another building. I'm sorry, we just, I know it's just a bathroom, but we just, every time we turn around, we're adding a building and then we have to keep it up.
It's really just roofing space, to
Well,
be honest with you, but you know, because it's going to be added onto the building, so it's just additional roof line or square footage. It's not a standalone structure in and of itself.
But there are separate bathrooms inside for, in your fundraising, is that accurate?
We had funds back in a prior fiscal year allocated towards upgrading the bathrooms inside the Powerhouse. The project came to a stall because in order to do that, we were definitely taking away a lot of working space from the town players in order to satisfy that need. There is still that need. And the feeling was that to do the lobby expansion would then allow us to put the bathrooms in and still satisfy their needs without taking away lobby space or taking away their office space. Because what we would have to do is take away their office space and relocate them upstairs into an area that's quite inaccessible, which then runs into its own accessibility issues. Since it's a staircase, a narrow staircase, that's a whole different set of circumstances. Keeping them on the first floor is a lot more simplistic. You can gain access in and out and not run afoul of any regulations that might be out there.
But the ADA is the 250 in ARPA, the 250 in capital is what? The corridor and
so $250,000 in the ARPA was for outdoor public bathrooms on the campus.
yeah, I get that.
The $250,000 that's currently in our budget was placed there by the Board of Selectmen after the ARPA funds after the bathroom funds were removed, the Board of Selectmen kept the $250,000 in our budget to assist the town players in their fundraising towards their lobby expansion, which would then allow us to put in bathrooms inside as well. It's fulfilled the need that we had from several years ago to put bathrooms inside, ADA accessible bathrooms inside.
So maybe two questions. One, I don't know what this costs, but there's a plan and there's private funding and there's a whole thing that we'll go through at some point and understand. This 250 feels a little bit like the police department. We're not exactly sure, but we knew we're going to need to do something for what you described. I mean, earmarking it for that. We're not going to bond it today. We're not going to do anything along those lines, but it does give you, I think, to get going on how the rest of this looks. I don't think you hear what your feedback getting, I think, is we're not comfortable with what all that is yet. And
We
so
can understand that.
250 here, 250 there, it starts to add up, and without knowing the whole strategy, it gets a little, is that a fair way to summarize it? I think.
But yeah, I think it also has to back it up beyond. I think people can understand the physical plan, what you're thinking of doing.
Right.
I think the bigger question is the powerhouse, the greater community, how many people are involved. I mean, there's a plan to expand it to new programming, but all of a sudden we're building a building for programming that doesn't exist, and it's like the goal is to maybe do students and stuff like that. That doesn't exist yet. So I feel like we're a little bit ahead of, we're committing the town to another building that we need to maintain and provide to an entity that we have to keep up and they use. But I think the scope of how broadly it is used in the community is something that people are still looking into.
I didn't hear that's what this 250 is for. I thought I heard that you said the selectmen wanted this for capital to help support the work on the lobby and the building and then access to the bathroom.
But it's all
Not the
part
potting
of it.
shed.
But it's all part of it because the whole
Well,
ask
that I
is
agree with,
150, right?
I agree that.
1.5. So it's all part of it. And I think you have to understand and feel comfortable with funding the whole concept. You can't just say part of it. That's how I think.
The thought is that you still get another slice at the apple because we can't go forward with any funding without an authorization.
That's right.
Assuming that this 250 will be bonded, which, I'm feeling that's probably going to be correct.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, it still comes back, but it allows the project to be vetted by the council. If the council hasn't seen it.
I mean, the question is, what's the downside of moving this tonight? Recognizing we still have to have the plan.
Correct.
That's one way to look at it. That's easy. On the other hand, what's the point of moving it then? If we don't have the plan, we can wait for the plan. We can still, it's not like the 250. If we have a plan and it's $1 million and it's these 7 things and this is what we all need to do, we debate it back and forth and we agree that's what we're going to do, this 250 will be in there somewhere. So
I mean, I think the bathrooms are really needed. I was
Absolutely.
not
The
clear
bathrooms.
whether that was the ARPA money. It
Yes.
sounds like it
Yes.
all is.
That's
But
ARPA
as
money.
far as the powerhouse goes, I mean, I would really like an update on, the number of programs, the attendance specifically from New Canaan as opposed to Fairfield County. And, what, is there a revenue source here beyond what, the tickets? I mean, there's all these.
Address these questions now. I'm prepared to do that.
No.
I don't think you can.
Well,
I don't think you can.
And I do need to say that I did come and present. to
Mhm,
the
you
Board of
did.
Finance.
Yeah,
Right.
you did.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I shared in writing a lot of the information that's being discussed. And in terms of, we do have children's programs now that are actually having to perform and do their classes outside because there's insufficient space.
They're present right now.
Why are we commingling this 250? Why wouldn't we just make the bathrooms ADA compliant?
that's the important.
Ones in the annex. Those are the ones you want, right?
We need outdoor bathrooms, correct?
Oh,
Outdoor public
yeah.
bathrooms. The commingling occurred when.
No, I understand that, but if I'm looking at this, which is, thank goodness it's here, we're not talking about the potting shed.
Right.
ADA compliant bathrooms are the ones that are in there today that you said your moms can't do. Those are the existing ones.
There's
Inside the
Okay.
powerhouse.
space.
Yeah, to me, the question is, why wouldn't we authorize capital for that? That needs to be done. I don't care what we do with the potting shed. That's where I feel like we're commingling a lot of big things around something where we need to do something in those bathrooms.
Well,
That's-
at present, we have ARPA funding for outdoor bathrooms. We just don't
Right.
have a location yet.
Yeah.
We have a
Right.
location as to, it was either in the potting shed or annexed.
Yeah.
Small, in the small addition on the side. So
Not here.
The easiest
not
thing to
here.
do is wait to
Yeah,
determine
I
what you want to
agree.
do with
Yeah,
ARPA, and
yeah.
then we'll know where we're going to go from there, unfortunately.
Were there additional years of funding here? Because there is not. So where was the rest of the money coming from? I remember you speaking to your fundraising efforts, and what was your, refresh our memory, was another 250 or?
So,
five?
so what we're, as I believe Tiger shared with you all, the total project for the theater part, not the public restrooms, if you will, but for the theater part, outside with all contingencies is 1.25 million. Of that, we have raised 300,000 that we have in the bank available to spend committed funding. We're continuing our fundraising activities as we speak with different actions. And what we had originally proposed to the town and requested of the town is the commitment that we could do the work for the expanded lobby that had been agreed to by the town in 1984. And with that, we would take on the project of the internal, the theater ADA bathroom. We don't want people walking across the courtyard to a public restroom. Right? We also need to have the capacity for bathrooms sufficient for 115 people. So the request that we had on the table when we first met with you stands, which is to give that town players the arena to take on the project of enclosing the lobby, which will give us the access to the space we need in the existing office to turn those into bathrooms, the ADA bathrooms. I know you're not here to approve the proposal plan.
Right.
But that's what the funding is for. And that's where we ask for, Tyler's support to have in his budget to contribute to the lobby. Separate from the shed, separate from the public bathrooms that need to be there. I realize maybe it's confusing, but we came forward with what's most economical for the whole project, the whole campus, to complete it. One design, one bid, one proposal, because it's your building, it's the town's building, right? It's not the town players building, it's the town building. We all get the benefit of the money that we're raising. So we're saying we'll raise about 50% of the project costs, a little bit more actually. In exchange, we, the town, get the use of this wonderful new standard lobby with the 88 bathroom.
Well, it seems to me this board's has two choices, right? We can approve the capital request pending. We're not going to, as you said, we can't bond it. We can't send it to town council. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, but at least we can keep the project moving. And so pending all of that due diligence, we would just approve this capital request for now. Not only due diligence, but the bigger plan and then the use of ARPA. What is it? Which ARPA funds are going to go where? We need to understand all of that. So we could do that. The alternative is to defer this expense until the ARPA funds are sorted and the rest of the plan is approved and finalized.
Yeah, I mean,
Is there another option? Seems like to me those are the two.
It does help us bring it forward to the council, since right now the ARPA funding question about which location would be the bathrooms is stalled at the council because they're waiting for more information similar to what was presented prior, right? So it does help us go forward to the council and then
Keep the conversation rolling. Yeah, that's my
hopefully
point.
solve that issue of location of outdoor bathrooms, which then might drive the discussion on the lobby expansion or annexing the bathroom.
And that's really your request.
That's really it.
That's really your request. Okay. That's Tiger's request.
Do we know but does this request of this board get converted if in fact the decision about ARPA that's being deferred? I mean, we know we have some ARPA funds for the yet to be located public bathrooms. But if they don't get the ARPA funds because other things are thought to be more deserving of those ARPA funds, or if the fundraising falls shy of the goal, we're a little half pregnant here with a project that doesn't have sufficient funding, and then it's coming back to us, right? So I'm just wondering, is that
Well, you're correct, but it depends upon the council's decision at the time. If the council decides to annex the bathrooms, then we would have a refurbished potting shed to Victor's.
Yeah.
Nothing, nothing to show for it, right? Nothing to put inside it. So it is, there are part and parcel together, but I think that, moving forward, the town players are confident that they can raise the funding for their lobby expansion. That's where we're at. I think
I think we're going into this with a lot of open questions. You have to either get comfortable with that.
So if we approve the 250, this,
Yeah.
is it gonna get spent on these bathrooms, or is it just approved that it's out there? Subject to.
According to the memo, that's lobby expansion.
You already approved 254 bathrooms. You didn't specify where they were at the time. The council made the caveat that they would approve the funding. I can't go forward yet because I don't have a location yet, so I can't.
It
go to
sounds
the
like the
funding.
council
So
has to
that
tell you
two-
where to go.
What?
Yeah, I think
The
it's up to
council
the
has to tell
council.
you
I
where
do
to,
too. I think,
I don't
yeah.
disagree, but I'd like to bring the entire project forward to them with that thought to then say, okay, it's now a combined project, so to speak, and have it viewed holistically. And then make a determination. If the council determines still at that point in time to say that the bathroom would be in the potting shed, then that portion of it is moot to that point, right? So the ARPA funds.
Right.
Right, but for
That-
them to
then they're-
make that decision, they would have to make a decision on the overall project, which is $1.5 million project, as opposed to
Yes.
just saying, you have approval from us to spend $250,000 on bathrooms in that section of Waverly Park.
In the funding.
So when that's been this, when somebody will give you the clearance as to whether that's to be in the annex or not, then you can move forward. You don't need anything more from us because we've already approved it.
That portion of the aspect, yes, except for the lobby expansion, the Board of Selectmen did put $250,000 in our budget to carry our portion or the town's contribution towards their lobby expansion.
And the bathrooms, and the theater stuff, the spitters in the bathrooms. That's what the town's contributing to.
Right, but we
No.
never, we haven't approved that. We have approved, we approved 250,000 for ADA compliant bathrooms in that section of the park.
That's what I.
Full stop.
You are correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
You are correct.
So we don't need to do anything more, I don't think. You need to decide what you're gonna do. It sounds to me like you're going, you need a clearance, green light from someone to put it in the annex.
Again, I
and then
think,
Do it.
I think you're asking for $250,000 more.
Yeah, you are asking. for
That's
$200.
Yeah,
right.
it's not a
exactly
question of
right.
where it's spent. That 250 is there.
Yeah, but we
You've
don't know
got
what
it.
that's gonna be spent for.
Well, they've got it. We approved it.
No, that's.
That's for the
that we know
ADA
it.
compliance. We
Yeah.
agree to that.
Yeah,
This is,
it's
like I said
250,
before,
yes.
I think this is 250 for the lobby.
Which then,
Right.
which then helps us solve the problem of putting the bathrooms in their
And
space.
this is Tiger's point.
Okay, and not taking away additional lobby space or their office space. Because that, right now, that the plan would, in essence, remove their office space and relocate it upstairs. And then reduce the already smaller lobby. So
It-
that's,
So
that's
if we
that's
give
the
you,
reason
so
why it's a
if
little
we
bit
approve
combined.
the additional 250, what are you gonna spend it on?
Excuse me,
If we approve the additional 250,
that would be for a lobby expansion, provided that the town players can come forward with the remaining portion of their funds. If not, then we would have to come back and just then determine at that point in time, I still need to put bathrooms in the lobby. If they can't come forward with their fundraising, then I would still have to put bathrooms there, and I might have to remove their office space and portion of their lobby at that point, push would come to shove at that point in time.
But if this is approved, let's just play the two options out. We approve it tonight, the extra 250 for something associated with the lobby investment that's going to happen. Got it. Goes to town council. But there's not really a full-fledged plan yet, but maybe there is a full-fledged plan. So that full-fledged plan at some point breaks cover and here's the whole thing. Here's all the money that we need for all that they need to do. They have to approve, they would have to approve that. And then it comes back to us for funding
Correct.
and bonding, and then we would have to approve we could have them approve the capital as well.
You know, this is a big ask. This is a big dollar ask that came up pretty recently, right? Within the last 4 months. Right. And we've kind of tried to have a discipline that proposals kind of come to us, you know, in the early stages, and we percolate, and they like generally come the next year. I mean, it's very unusual for something that's not like a school building closing or something like that, for us to have a, you know, kind of an optional project that, you know, if I'm thinking about this right, it's maybe the whole in cost is maybe $1.5 million, $250,000 is for the bathrooms or this size, but there's a very large contribution by the town for a entity that has, you know, not an enormous scope in terms of the number of people involved in it and stuff. I'm not saying it's not important, it's not saying that's good, but it seems like to me, it seems premature, and that it's asking a very large contribution from the town. And all of a sudden, the fact that we're fixing bathrooms gets morphed into something else. And I do understand in every building we have to do ADA, and so it gets complicated. So I don't know. I think it's a little premature in my opinion.
But it's
Also-
it's also fair to say that, and I don't know the competing interests here on ARPA, because everybody's got needs and requests, and it's just gotten voluminous. But if this is not funded out of ARPA, the bathrooms, then we'll fund it out of capital, because we have to have bathrooms at Waveney. And I mean, I think everybody's in agreement with that. I don't know the priority, if it's likely that that's going to be funded by ARPA. I mean, I don't know.
I think we're hearing it.
The subcommittee, we put a list of things that we kind of said, sure, we thought are important, including things like the library, and, you know, big stuff, and health and safety, and projects that were already in the capital plan. And it was like, we were saying, let's not have stuff jump, let's not have stuff, you know, we can move stuff forward. But that was some of the priority.
Here's a suggestion. I would say that holding ARPA aside, although that's a variable, there isn't one person that could, if they went into a room, could explain what the whole plan is for that, and the order that they need it, the amount of money, and our town contribution. I think we'd all get it wrong. And I think if you did the same thing with the town, you'd get it all. You get all right. We just don't know yet. It feels premature. I hate to say it. I just feel like the resistance here is we need more information. I don't think anyone's against the idea in total. I think we're against the idea today, because it just feels like we don't quite have the facts yet to really understand the whole picture. And what does the 250 mean and all the rest of it. So maybe the suggestion is we defer this capital request. There's nothing magical about today in that regard. This capital request can come to us 2 months from now and in with the rest of the plan. Honestly, I suggest, given the campus and what you want to do, maybe we propose to do a joint town council board of finance discussion just to get everybody on the same page. Stephen, not to put you on the spot, but it might be time to do.
To Chris's point, that might be helpful, because right now we're at a stasis point for bathrooms. And that actually is one key point towards driving the rest of the conversation.
I get it.
So,
okay. I mean, I think the best answer is to maybe just defer it for a month or two to get us together and get the plan understood. And then we can feel comfortable that we are all behind the right idea. And I just sense it's probably we should move to defer it for tonight. Again, you're not deferring it for a year. You're not deferring it for staff. We're deferring it. This can be discussed and sorted out in 30 days or 60 days. But I can just feel that we're not aligned yet. Okay.
A lot of questions.
Next item.
The Audubon House.
The laundry, also known as the laundry building. Is this
The laundry building.
The laundry building. So
When
the
did they
question
give
there
it that
is
name?
200. I like that name. You should, the
We
antique,
invested.
original, one of a kind Audubon house.
Mhm.
Yeah. $200,000. The
Yeah.
question then is that's a lot of money. Purpose, other options. Is it necessary? Is it something
so I forwarded a letter
Yep.
from the executive director of the Nature Center. This has been an idea that we've been working through probably for 5-6 years now. Came to a head just before COVID, and then we had a problem with COVID just because it's COVID, right? So, but we have an opportunity to save one of the buildings that right now is unoccupied. One of our 57, 58, however we want to use the number. It's actually a little bit higher if you really want to get into.
We don't want to get higher. No,
Yeah.
we're trying to go the other way.
I know, it's not gonna happen. I did take down a greenhouse this year at the Nature Center,
You
so
did?
overall, we're actually doing quite well.
That ICA
Keep going,
certificate
man.
down.
Keep going.
Yeah.
We're at a -1, so.
Green
yeah,
space.
so,
Yeah.
So be that as it may, the Nature Center would like to use that for preschool programming and then for their summer programs. Right now, they have no more usable space at the Nature Center available to increase their programming. And there's a definitive need in the community for it, both preschool and summer school or summer programming. And the thought being is that the town is responsible to refurbish the building itself, bring it back the outside of the building, and then the Nature Center would refurbish with their capital funds the inside to make it so that they could use it for their programming needs. And at
Does
that
this
point-
have to have ADA bathrooms and all that stuff?
No, well, yeah,
No, I'm serious. An ADA entrance, because it doesn't ADA right now.
it's very close to an existing one whereby we can actually relocate and have people walk to the one that's in the visitor center. Will we have bathrooms in it? Yes, it's already plumbed, everything's set to go there. It just needs to be redone, but we don't necessarily, per code, we can actually have people relocate to the visitor center if they have a need. So the thought is that they would garner net profit of approximately $49,000 a year, which they would then put back into the campus needs. So right now they have about $250,000 in capital that they're putting forward for new boardwalk extensions, new boardwalk replacements. They have 2 structures that they maintain, the gazebo and another structure that they actually have to work on, and then some other work that they want to do on the campus. And then the thought is that any net profits coming from this programming would then allow them to put it back into future programming or into the campus itself. They are a not-for-profit. They work solely out of this park. And that is the overall thought, is to then utilize this building for something other than, at some point in time, it'll be demolition by neglect, which we don't want to get to. We had it structurally analyzed, and the building is, because we originally thought we would knock it down and build a new structure there
Yeah.
for this purpose for a lot more money. And the structural engineer came back and said, no, we could save the building and continue forward renovating the building, put in new roof, things of that nature, and then moving forward and allow it to actually be utilized.
Who was the structural engineer we used?
Rick Boggs.
Do we need a second opinion?
No.
Okay, because that's really the life of it. Okay,
Is there
all right.
a number that we should be aware of for comparison purposes to take it down?
Take it down to then put it back up, or
No.
just take it down?
Take it
To
down.
replace it.
To take it down, it's not that much money.
I mean, I
It's just.
don't know how to really interpret the information here, but if summer camp is as short as my now fading memory recalls summer camps to be, this is $200,000 for a program of 10 children.
Yep.
For the vast majority of the year, which
And-
seems outsized.
And how many hours a day are little kids in
No,
the
it
program?
just- And,
For
and
preschool, those are questions for Bill Flynn, but
Right.
yes, you're looking at the preschool annually was 10 students, 2 separate classes, like a 2s and 3s or 3s and 4s. And then summer camp, you had 120 children that would run through that programming space.
right, so I just,
I mean, are they expecting to increase campers 126, or is it the current camping group they have?
No, they would increase.
these, right, these are, guesstimates. And again, I'm not trying to get into hyperbole here, but for 10 participants for the vast majority of their year. I mean, again, summer camp, you can have 120 kids, but we run some summer camp programs and there's no indoor activities, right? It's all outside. So I'm just,
Well, you're looking, the 10 is preschool. That's during the school year, right?
right.
And then the summer camp, like you said, was 120 for that summer programming.
I just, I'm not sure foregoing the programming for these additional 10 is something, put another way, it's hard to think that programming is mission critical to what they're trying to do, right? It seems like this is a nice to have, someone's looking at this thing saying, what can we do with it? Oh, hey, this would be an idea, but I'm just $200,000 for 10. You know what I mean? It's just kind of,
Yeah.
I'm-
200. It's
It wasn't the cart and the horse, it was the horse and the cart, right? So they didn't say, they came to us with a need. It wasn't that, we didn't go to them and say, what could you use this building for? It was more, we want to use this building for this. So they have the need and then identified the building and said, can we restore it to that?
But why is the need only for 10 kids?
I think that's what the structure itself can house. It's not necessarily that there's only a need for 10. I think there's a need for greater than that, but they can house 10 in the structure itself.
I see.
What's the square footage of it? Do you know? Is it like,
Not
it's
off the top of
little.
my head, I'm sorry.
I mean, I drove by it. It's small. It was a laundry building.
I think I'm with Tom. It's a good question, Tom.
I am too.
Well, it's back to number of residents and usage and attendance and how many weeks. It's all the same, key questions. We go
just,
through this with everything.
200? How much was the amount?
200.
Yeah.
200.
Chris.
it's 200 in the, it's 200 on the list, but it's 98 in this memo.
Well, the 98 is the
98 is
projected,
right.
it's the projected revenue from the programs that would utilize the facility once it's up and running.
So today I'm hearing either defer this or reject it.
I would take it out and if people at some point want to come back and
And then see if there's alternatives to do the programs you're talking about in other facilities.
it was a very shallow presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know their programming.
And we don't understand it. He hasn't been here. Maybe he needs to come and explain it too. I'm
Sounds like it's
not
not this year.
comfortable.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
it's
this year.
200 grand.
Yep, okay.
We had removed it earlier and then we put it back in.
Yeah. well,
It
then
came up
there
as a
was-
question
yeah,
on the
That's all
last
we
time.
might,
It's okay.
and,
That's all right.
I think we're right. We continue to have questions.
Okay, next.
The playground.
Playground. Gosh.
Back to the playground.
I shaved tonight too.
We didn't recognize you.
Oh, that's
It's very presentable.
That we had.
Your mother would be proud.
So the playground itself was deferred from last year to this year. And it's not just a playground. You have to understand it's a playground and an adult fitness area combined.
Mhm.
We already have the adult fitness area. It's been there for 10 years. It was donated at the time by SpedNet through their all out for autism races that they had. And we have a competing need or a need for a playground in Waveney. It's our largest park and we don't have a playground in Waveney. We've got a playground in other facilities, but not at Waveney. And what we're seeing is that we're having problems keeping children off of the adult fitness area. And we've actually had a couple of injuries there. One could have been quite significant where a small girl might have lost her finger on one of the apparatus. So we're trying to give the children, right now it's an attractive nuisance, right? So, it's a needed and it's been utilized quite well and it's utilized every day, but it's an attractive nuisance. So what we'd like to do is co-locate that with a children's playground. All of our playgrounds are ADA accessible, so there would be not only playscapes for able-bodied children, but also for disabled children and some for special needs. It won't be a special needs playground, but it have aspects of that inside the playground. And then co-located with that would be this adult fitness area, but we would sequester the two with fencing so that you can go to the children's playground at will, and then you would have to walk through fencing to get to the adult play area. Adult play area would, in essence, if we put it further away from the playing fields, it'd be farther for the children to travel, and they would just go to the playground itself. We'd be looking at muted colors, tan, browns, greens, nothing that's light blues and orange, because it is inside Waverly Park. And then we would do the entire surface with a court and play surface, which is now accessible year round, right? So the problem that we have during winter months is that the mulch that we use tends to freeze, and when it freezes, it loses its fall factor, loses its safety factor, and then it's difficult to traverse, especially if you're so the thought is to then put the entire thing down on a poured in place surface and go forward from there. There's a savings, there's a economy of scale to do them together. There is not an economy of scale to spread them apart, right? Or do them separately. And the adult fitness area right now has about a year left in its lifespan, right? And at that point in time, we're actually gonna have to start removing pieces of apparatus, bringing the backhoe in and actually digging it out of the ground and taking it out. Because it's no longer serviceable and they don't have replacement parts for it. So it's just a question of replacing that unit.
And that's well utilized.
Excuse me?
That's well utilized.
That's well utilized. And actually there was if you remember 20 years ago, there was actually a fitness trail in that area. So there was fitness trail equipment there. It was made out of wood and metal. So it was metal bars and 4x4
I
posts and things
remember the
like
metal
that.
bars.
So
Yeah.
that was there.
Yeah.
That's why it was located. That's
Yeah.
why the adult fitness area was located there, because that was already there prior and it had, gone past its useful life, needed to be replaced. And that's why SpedNet came in and put this in.
Tiger, what's the current request?
$455,000.
I thought we agreed to move this. I thought we just looking for some additional information, which you just provided. So,
You did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
You
think
did
that
to a
was,
subcommittee,
did.
yep.
Yeah,
We met. So.
Okay.
It's good.
okay. So you guys are okay on the,
yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Any concerns? 'Cause I think that was the feedback we were looking for after the first time we heard it on the other night. Okay, I think that stays in. Josh. Okay.
It's okay. It's 300.
333.
There you go. There you go.
All right.
Still make the Hall of Fame.
That's right. Baseball's coming.
What's next?
The last one I have is the Playhouse movie theater.
I think we have Irwin Park. We
Oh,
just,
yeah, we're gonna talk about
let's
it.
talk about that. We
Sure,
just,
yeah.
we just had two speakers speak about it. We forgot it
I didn't-
last week.
Yeah.
What's the amount?
250?
250?
No, it's 175 to 200.
75 to 200.
What's your read on that? And you were supportive of it before in terms of the needs that they had and the question that came up.
This was on the original plan.
Yeah.
For Irwin, when it came forward, when we did the
Mhm.
walking trail through, there was actually a proposed boardwalk. It was cut out
Mhm.
originally, and then, and now this would be the addition to it. The garden club went forward and gave it, developed it in a master plan. And now, we've estimated out it being, it's about 900 feet long. A third of it would be, wooden, made out of wood, and a third of it would actually be on grade. So while it would go traverse through wetland area, we could make it through on grade for about 2/3 of it, 1/3, then the boardwalk, and then a third coming out. And our estimate at present, based upon what we've done at the Nature Center and at Bristow, is about $175,000 to $200,000 to do boardwalk and then a stone walkway on either side of it. Yeah, as you mentioned, it was not part of it. It came in a little bit late because they were developing their master plan, so it was not part of our budget presentation to the Board of Selectmen at the time. But now they're a little bit closer to being vetted. It still needs to be designed, finalized. The design needs to be finalized, but we're at that point now.
So are you looking for a preliminary approval? Sounds like you may not have the final yet.
But we have we have the estimates final and the schematic is final.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's been well reviewed. Yeah.
I mean, you're ready to go, right?
I don't, well, we can move forward and finalize the design. Yeah, there's not much else to be done other than to finalize the design and put it out to bid, in that regard,
Questions questions for Tiger? Feedback?
I would just say, just in being consistent, is that, again, this is a project, first time we heard about it is this year. And with other projects, we've kind of said, great, let us think about it a year and maybe put it in next year. I'm just trying to be consistent. I'm not saying, but I feel like Board of Finance, we're the bad guys. Everyone proves everything and we have to say, well, we can't do everything. But I just think in being consistent, I said that for a couple other projects that, hey, the first time we heard about it, it's a little unfair for us to go forward with it. So just from my
said it was in the original plan.
Okay.
It was.
So then it was been dropped for 10 years or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then COVID hits and people are outside and want to walk and then.
And there's liability with that ice slope at the end.
No, that it actually would circumvent
I'm
that.
saying
No,
if
he's
you
saying
don't-
today
if
there
you
is.
don't do it.
Today there is. if you
Well,
don't do it.
except we sort of agreed at the time to close down the trails if it was, snowy and icy. We weren't going to, I don't know, people
I've
still
seen people
use
that-
them.
They did.
I know, I
I've
have
crawled
too.
over them.
I have too, but
Amy's point's
in
fair.
general.
We try to do this in a concerted way. We do make exceptions, obviously, and we'll always will, but we try to, be careful about that. Any
It's.
support against,
Well,
do deferred?
trying not to.
I support it. I think
It doesn't come with entangling alliances, let me put it that way.
If we did move it forward, would it get done to be used this summer? I mean,
Probably not.
This summer's would be a little difficult.
when do you think if everything
Probably
went-
go in the summer.
Otherwise, it's a full, pretty much another year.
It would, yes, I wouldn't necessarily want to be in there constructing during the winter.
In the fall, maybe, but
In the fall,
Yeah.
I could construct in the fall as well. In the winter, I wouldn't want to, or in the early
Yeah.
spring. Be looking at more of a summertime construction and then a fall usage or a fall opening.
And just, I know we had the presentation, but what percent of the park does that expand? Is another 20%, 10%, 30%? I mean, it actually meaningfully increases the footprint of usable.
Yeah,
which
it's
is kind of nice.
You have about 5,000 linear feet of trail at present. We have just under a mile of trail. It's going to add a 900 feet. So about
Make it a mile.
20%.
Yeah.
So it's got a mile.
7/8 of a mile
Get a
plus,
mile.
yeah.
I would get, well,
pretty
yeah, we
crowded.
would definitely be over a mile at that point in time. We're just shy. We're just over 9/10.
Yeah.
At present, it's about 8/10 all the way around and about a 1/10 in between, so add on another, 900 feet.
Tiger, how's your bandwidth? You think you can get that done? I mean, there's a lot of stuff here for you.
Would you ever say no?
gonna be a lot more
Would you ever say no?
expensive
No.
That's
No,
true too.
Ask my children. I never said that. Yeah, you asked me that question on the playground prior, and we said yes to the playground prior. I'd hate to say no to another one because I said yes to another.
Yeah.
The boardwalk work that we've done at Bristol has proceeded quite well. The contractor that we hired at the time did a fantastic job and
It's
it
nice.
proceeded, provided materials were available, right? We had to wait for materials to be there, but I don't foresee any large troops that this would cause where we would say, oh, we can't handle this additional.
Would we seek a bid from that contractor?
I would definitely would,
Yeah.
yeah. We would go out
Hopefully
as
he
we
would do
normally
it,
do,
yeah.
but we would definitely allow notify the ones that have bid for us prior and given us very favorable bids that this is coming out. They pay attention anyways.
What would this, typically last?
Yeah,
Would
exactly.
you say, before it needs significant repair?
Significant repair, you're getting 15 years out of it.
Okay, all right.
The locust wood is stronger than cedar.
$10,000-$12,000
Yeah,
kind
so
of thing a
that's-
year. It's not-
gives you
I
some.
might have an issue on the trail where it might wash out, things of that nature. We're gonna try to, avoid that with proper grading. But for significant repair, yeah, you're talking 15 years.
Okay, all right, that helps.
Along those lines, as we talked about this at the playground as well. So to the extent we do approve things for capital and bonding, we need to be really careful about useful life on some of these things. We can't just automatically say 20 years because they're 15,
Or 10,
maybe,
or
or
10,
10 or lower, or
right,
5.
right.
So I think we should cognizant of that when we
Well,
put that
It's
together.
actually-
Good point, yeah.
Part of the spreadsheet that they put together is actually, with Sandy Dawson is a listing of years associated with it. So there's actually that, and very few were at the 20.
Good.
Very few
So
we put at the 20 mark.
motion to approve that, because that's truly a new item. Motion
Yep.
to approve 175 Irwin Park Boardwalk. Neil, second?
Not a voter.
A second?
I would, but I don't know if I should, but I would.
Familiar with it.
Why are you not second?
Well, I.
Because of Garden Club?
Yeah,
Oh, well,
absolutely.
yeah, I don't think you're
But
conflicted.
that's
I'll
all
second.
right.
Okay, thank you, Victor.
Yeah, somebody who knows what. some-
Victor,
I'm
second. All in
allowed to
favor? You can vote yes, no, or abstain. Yes?
Yes.
Count 'em up.
Judy voted? You're voting?
Oh, I'm
Judy's
allowed to
up.
vote. I
Yeah,
have an
of course.
opinion.
No, it's fine. You should.
6, Amy, what did you
Neil's yes.
Yes.
All opposed?
I'm going to oppose it just on timing.
Okay, on
Not that I
principle.
think it's a bad idea.
You'll
One
come
opposed?
around.
I'm
Any
not saying it's a bad
I
idea.
know.
One
I got to be
opposed?
consistent.
I'm
Any
abstaining because
abstain?
I'm not educated enough on this.
Okay, one.
Oh, come
I
on.
think that was
I'll
six.
let
Is that 6 yes,
I'll
1,
educate you.
6-1-1.
6, 1, and 1? Okay,
You'll love it.
what was the last one?
The Playhouse.
Playhouse, okay, so.
2 for 4 right now.
Again?
He said, I'm on a roll. I said, I'm 2 for 4.
2 for
right now."
4. All right, well, this is Hall of Fame material here.
Exactly.
You get this one.
Good luck on the next
So Steve, you want to join us up front here?
I know, should have done this before.
So if I were to review where I think we are, why don't you, Tiger, why don't you give us a sense as to where we are to the extent that you can? I know Michael was taking a look at some things as well, but go ahead.
Right, so we've been meeting with Michael. Michael's met with the proposed operator. They're going to come forward and give another presentation to, I believe, to both the Board of Finance and the Town Council together. It's a very favorable right now as far as what they're proposing to do with the Playhouse and the return that we would receive as far as rent would go, much more favorable than we were at present. Excuse me. They would be putting in almost an equal amount of capital expenditure as we would. We have some additional work that we need to do on the outside, about $600,000 worth of work that we need to do to shore up the outside as far as sealing up the envelope. And then there would be some work on the inside that we would do, and then they would do as well, to try to then fit it out. We would fit it out as basically as the landlord, and then they would fit it out as the tenant, as their needs would go. As far as a different seating structure, a different seating style, having some other larger expanded lobby, moving the bathrooms upstairs to try to expand the lobby and bring it back to its full size, removing each of the tenants that we have at present and relocating them if we can, and then putting an additional area up top for entertainment purposes at that point. So, you know, we've been vetting different operators for quite some time, and this one definitely came to the top. They sought us out. They actually saw the Playhouse, came to look at it, and then reached out to Tucker and said, we want to talk. So, you know, overall, I think it's a very good move. I'm excited about what they're proposing to do, especially since they have a lot of capital skin in the game with it. So we have an estimated construction for what we would need to do and what they would need to do, and we have different buckets right now at present in our budget to handle that, or to cover the majority of that work.
So I want to make sure I'm clear on the ask, and then I wanted to ask Steve Carl a question. Is the ask to use the $800,000 that's in the reserve fund plus $1 million of capital for now? Is that where we are for now?
That's correct.
Okay. So the question I had for Steve as the chair, there's, you know, I think everyone can have their opinion as to whether the town needs a theater and so forth. And I did make a comment that our job is to really figure out how to finance what the town wants to do. And so I asked Steve, as the chair of the town council, to give a perspective on the theater itself as an asset for the town as we deliberate this 1 million of capital and earmarked for now. Actually, we can't really prove it, of course, just to earmark it. We're kind of like the police station and the 800,000 transfer.
Yeah, so I didn't really come with a presentation or even a long bunch of comments, but I was on the original committee that studied the theater back in the 16 and 17. And there were several different forums that were held in town. And we tried to gauge, you know, if people wanted the theater or not. And it was very, very clear, overwhelmingly clear, that the residents and taxpayers wanted the theater. And, you know, from my perspective, there are towns that you drive through and, you know, you see downtown, but I think if you talk to anybody who's bought a house here during COVID over the last couple of years, you drive down Elm Street, that theater is part of who we are. And that's what we heard that over and over again. So there is the dollar side of this equation, but one thing I said to Todd, there's an emotional side to this as well. So you guys obviously are the number crunchers, and we've got to make sure that from the town's perspective, you know, we're covered financially, and it's a good decision. The council's sort of the soul of the town in terms of trying to make the decision whether we keep that theater there or not.
We're soulless. Is that what you're saying?
Steve, I was with you right then until
right? That's so harsh.
That's true. That's true.
So you know, it's really.
Yeah.
It's whether or not we have to take a fresh look at it and talk to people. But historically, the building was there. It's been there since 1923. That's when the theater was formed. We're literally a year away from having a 100th anniversary of this theater. It's an amazing story. And if we can get back to a point where, you know, I had this vision someday in the near future that I'm gonna be walking early summer evening downtown. Every road's gonna be paved, striped. The sidewalks are all finished. There's no orange cones up, horses up, all that's gone. The stores are full, the restaurants are packed. People are walking around town, and their biggest decision is whether they're gonna see a summer theater play at the green, at the library, or whether they're gonna go to the new movie theater, or go here to this. So, we're here to support the arts and theater in town. And I just think it's part of who we are. And the alternative is, hey, let's sell the building. Let's make a couple $1,000,000. Let's put an office there. Let's put, some stores there and bump it out. We're not going to have our bumped out sidewalk there. You gather there, right? Let's meet in front of the theater. It's a wide part of the sidewalk. It's a special place in town. It's at the 50-yard line. So I don't know. To me, it's an easy one, but you guys,
It's great
you're
feedback.
the numbers. So
I think, again, we're talking about earmarking $1 million of capital, like I said, like the police department. It's not we're not bounding it. We need to know more. I think Michael's working on that with you, Tiger, of course, and everybody else. And then to transfer the 800,000. At least that's what I understand to be the ask at the moment. Questions, comments,
So
input? Yeah.
Are we ready to get an update from Michael on his work so far?
No, we don't have enough information for me to be prepared to recommend this either way.
Okay, so what are we?
So the question, I
so
guess,
what are
would
we
be,
voting on then?
yeah, well, that's the question. Are we willing to, well, again, we need to move this to the town council. Michael's work's going to continue.
Officials a little further down the line.
Hang on, Michael's work's going to continue in parallel this month. For us, we don't want to kill the project by not supporting the project. The town council can't vote on it or look at it or evaluate it if we've shut it off. So the question is, for us, are we willing to, earmark $1 million of capital and be willing to transfer the $800,000 that's in the reserve fund while we await the due diligence to come back? We don't know if we have a good deal or a bad deal, but what we don't want to do is kill a deal before we've even evaluated it. I think that's the point.
and to be fair, the council hasn't heard anything. about it.
Right,
So we're
exactly.
still waiting.
So we want to keep the
We wanna
momentum
keep
moving.
it
I mean, question for Michael, are you comfortable with keeping the ball moving while we do,
I think the answer is right. Yes, I am. I'm comfortable with earmarking the money, not approving or recommending we go forward. But, there's enough to say there might be something interesting here that I don't think we should kill the deal today. I think we should earmark it, but subject to further due diligence and for them to come back and ask for it when we're ready. And at that point, I may say, yeah, this is a good idea. We should do it. Or I might recommend not to go forward. But I think the concept is good. I just am not comfortable that the numbers are ready to be presented yet.
Yeah.
So.
And so I guess I have some measure of comfort that earmarking is not an irreversible act, right? But the need to transfer what's already in, this 800,000, what does that accomplish?
we'd have to be willing to do that based on the numbers. I mean, 800,000 is going to go somewhere. If there's no movie theater, it'll come back to the town.
Well, my point is wouldn't we transfer that at the time that we are ready to get the recommendation?
Exactly.
Yeah, we're not, I shouldn't say.
Oh,
Yeah,
so there's no transfer now that we're.
Oh, no,
approving.
yeah,
We're just
I didn't mean to
putting a placeholder to keep it alive so the town can talk about it.
Actually, it's really $1 million capital question. The 800,000 is, all I'm saying is I think that's going to be asked to be part of the town's commitment.
Sure, that makes
But
sense.
it's not really at the moment. So
It's
we don't
not
have a
in
deal
it.
yet.
Okay.
There you go.
As long
That's a
as
good, that's all I was trying to suggest.
So keeping it alive
$1 million capital. Yeah.
means what exactly?
Well, then you're
Keep
continuing
investigating.
with it.
Does
It
that
goes to,
help Does that help the negotiation? Does it show? faith
Yeah,
that
it
we're-
shows due
Absolutely.
That's a good
diligence.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
what it shows.
Yeah, it
It's a
shows due
rhetorical question.
diligence.
We're showing that the town's got 800,000, we've earmarked $1 million. Let's negotiate. You better have a good plan or we're not doing it.
Yeah, I don't
That's
think
why I
you
would
want to,
favor-
you don't want to send the message that we've taken it out. That's a really negative. Yeah, and and back to the community input, it was huge, obviously 15 years ago, and maybe it's changed. I concede that, not everybody's going to movie theaters. But if this is more of a destination than just a movie theater, I think that changes the conversation. If I'm not preceding anything you're doing, but I agree in keeping it open and see, and you will have numerous public hearings.
we don't know, we don't know.
And we
right? I mean,
may,
that's the
we
whole
may
thing.
too,
Yeah.
but you'll have.
Yeah, I think you're right, Judy. I think the concept is exciting, right? So that's why I want to keep it alive. The question is, do they have the money? Do they have the right business plan? Will they survive at least if we have a 2-year lease, or are they gonna be at risk to go under in 3 months? Those are the questions that we need to get answered before we can recommend going ahead and start spending the money.
Okay.
And will the town accept a permanent subsidy?
Right, which it might be.
Yeah, so part of the model that you'll
Model
have to
makes
figure out is whatever.
And the answer might be yes.
Yeah.
We will do that for the cultural aspect.
Or maybe it could be an enterprise zone. I mean, maybe that's
Correct,
something that
yeah.
needs to be explored.
Just
We've done
all
that.
that stuff, right.
All of that could be part of it, revenues versus expenses. and we
Correct,
could-
yeah, yeah.
That would be a home run, but that's, wishful maybe.
So the board's supportive of
Yeah.
earmarking $1 million of capital. Tiger's at the number?
Yep.
$1 million of capital for this current budget. I'm going to ask for a vote on that to make sure we're clear on that. So that's good.
Can I say one thing on this? Not that I would ever say one thing, but I think pursuing this concept is great, right? I think we'll look at it really thoroughly to make sure if it makes sense. I would, and keeping it alive is fine. I would say, I'm going to sound like a broken record here. I think our priority capital wise should be moving forward with the police department. So my worry is that we put this in and it's funner. It's more exciting. Okay. But as a government, what do we have? We have public safety and health. And then we have our schools and then we have all the fun stuff. Okay. I think my only worry is that putting this in, keep it in, but focus on the police department. We've been talking about this for 6 years.
I have one person in my staff dedicated to the police department right now, and he's gonna stay there. So that's his job right now, is to continue to move that project forward wherever it might lie.
But the rest of the town has to be behind it. You got
As
three.
far as,
Yep.
to Tom's point about bandwidth, I've already committed him to that project, right? And then as the Playhouse rolls, we'll see exactly who will project manage that or be the manager on that one. But I have Joe, he's slated to the police department. He's gonna stay there all the way through construction.
Not critique on you. I'm just talking from a town priorities.
But I just want to
Okay?
let you know where we are and where our priorities
Mhm.
lie. We are at that, we're there, so.
Amy, I agree. I mean, I can't disagree. One thing you said. With the
I'm
police
so
station,
glad we have soul here.
we
We do.
We're coming
We do.
back.
We've watched over the years, we've watched that police station be leapfrogged time and time again.
Yep.
And
Oh.
that's over.
Yep.
That is absolutely over.
Gotta
We've
get
drawn the line
done.
in the sand. We've all said it. We've all said it publicly. It's going to happen. So I can't agree with you more.
Yeah, it has to happen first.
So I think the motion is a approval of $1 million of capital to support the potential of a playhouse. It's really what it is. We still need due diligence, still need the homework done.
Correct.
Sounds like a plan.
Motion to approve that.
Almost.
Michael, good, second.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Well, I have a question.
Question, discussion, I meant?
So, Steve,
Uh-oh.
you
Always
said,
ask the
that-
toughest questions.
no, it's not the toughest question. It's probably a dumb one. So you said a couple of years ago, 16, 17, you looked into theater, and the conclusion at the time was that the town as a whole was favorable of theater, that it was an important part of it. Could you still say that today? I mean, post-COVID, I mean, things have changed so much.
It
a
has, Chris. I mean, that's the $64,000 question. And actually, Amy said it very well earlier. She said, is this theater going to become a buggy whip? I mean, that's the perfect analogy. I mean, are we creating something that's outdated? And I don't know that any of us can answer that without, looking into the future. What I do know is that people in general, they love the building the way it is. They love the marquee the way it is. We just went through this with the 1913 library. We just, and we got to the point where we decided as a town that we love that building so much that we're willing to pay for it and willing to keep it in the landscape. And that's kind of the same idea as this theater. This is something that the town wants to see. And there's something about it. You could put offices in there. I mean, that maybe someday that'll be what happens. But right now, the theater seems like the most logical use for that building.
My kids are at the movies tonight.
Yeah.
They were at the movies last week, Tuesday night, when I was here last time.
Seeing the Matrix or something, not seeing Downton Abbey.
Batman tonight.
Going to the Batman. Okay.
I would just, can I add one more thing on that? Because it is important. so the community has heard for the last 12 months or so that the theater is going to open, that we have been talking with operators, and the reports from the first selectman's office has been saying that we're moving forward. And when it first came to be, I had a ton of people reach out to me. I have names. I had a committee assembled who wanted to make sure that the theater was going to be reopened. But they've been reassured all along that we're doing that. So we haven't yet, they haven't heard, the public has not heard that there's a threat that the theater may not open. So by the fact that you haven't heard from them and they haven't come out here speaking in favor of it, isn't because they're not interested in it. It's because they don't know that there's a possibility that this could go down the wrong way. So I just put that out there. I think this will get some press and some airtime, and we might start hearing from people. But I just want to let you know that I did have a number of people reach out to me who wanted to serve on the committee, and we had assembled a group for a while there looking at the different operators. So I just, food for thought.
Okay, there's a motion on the table, seconded, to approve the $1 million of capital. Any other questions? Thanks, Tucker. That's really helpful. Okay, all in favor?
Are we okay with just hands on this, or do we have
As
to?
long as it's unanimous.
Okay, oh, let's see. We don't know.
well-
We'll see. All opposed? Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I guess it is.
Okay, Chris is going to abstain. Okay, so
Okay.
3 out of 5. You did very well for
very slow start.
They're all contingent, Tiger. Don't
Okay,
get too excited.
Steve, thank you.
I don't get a chance to sit next to this guy much, but I have to say,
Great feedback.
is there anybody that answers questions like this guy does about everything? I mean, he knows
Encyclopedia.
porous, non-porous, he knows
Exactly.
reflective, he knows
Right.
ponds, he knows everything there is to know about that, where everything is. I mean, Tiger, we couldn't do without you.
That's amazing. You're here.
Oh.
Amazing
You're
guy.
here. Okay, was that the last item?
So it's-
Okay, so
What's the new numbers?
So I just want to make
That's
sure
all
we're
capital.
clear on the items to move and to vote. This is the read we have. I don't think we changed anything.
Did not.
So all of these numbers are people, just team, 7 votes to have each of the line items. You have it in front of you. I think that's all we need to move tonight. Everything else goes to, oh, no, we don't vote on the mill rate?
No,
No,
we do
no,
that
we
later,
don't.
right?
We don't vote.
No,
Just-
we
That's
just
just, that's just
discussed it.
that's just an output of this effort. Got it. Oh, okay, great. Okay.
Tom, correct me if I'm wrong. In terms of the amount of money we actually pull down recommend to pull from the general fund, we could do that later in May, right? Like, this is a placeholder, right? In the past, we're gonna go,
For which now?
the placeholder for how much we pull in from the general fund.
Yeah,
to offset the mill rate.
100%. It's a placeholder.
Yeah,
This
so
is- That's right.
we'll get closer when we know. Yeah,
That's
okay.
exactly right. Yep. Yep. Now, this is not the final budget. This is where we are before it goes to town council.
The soulful people.
They can approve or take money out. All right. So do you want to read the items and then we vote on the total general fund operating expenditure number at the bottom? So
Are we ready?
ready to
Okay.
go.
Board of Finance Budget Regular Meeting, March 8th, 2022. Approval of the proposed 2022-2023 fiscal budget. General Fund, total town budget, $39,596,360. Total Board of Ed operating and health insurance transfer budget, $99,052,999. Total Board of Ed expenses paid by town budget, $572,801. Tax funded capital budget, $232,000. Debt service budget, $18,338,580. Non-wage contingency budget, $300,000. Total library budget, $2,562,818. Transfers and outside agencies budget, $928,437. Total general fund operating expenditure budget, $161,583,995. Motion.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Chris, second.
Second.
Tom, all in favor?
Are
Opposed?
we okay? All right. All right.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
General fund non-tax revenue budget total, $11,844,102. Fund balance contribution total,
So-
$5 million.
Sorry to interrupt. I think
No.
you vote on each
Oh,
of
oh,
those lines.
all right, we'll
those-
vote. That's right. We
So
agree.
we need a
to
motion
that,
on the
sorry.
general fund non-tax revenue budget total of 11,844. Amy, move second.
Second.
Second, Victor.
Yep.
All in favor? Opposed?
All right, fund balance contribution total, 5 million.
Motion?
Motion, yeah.
Michael, second? Tom? Oh, sorry. Yep. All in favor? All right, opposed, none? Okay.
Amount to be raised by taxation, 144,739,893.
Motion? Neil, second? Michael, all in favor? Opposed? None.
Pro-
None.
Okay. Property tax collection rate, 98.5%.
Motion to approve that
So moved.
rate, Chris, second?
Second.
Amy, all in favor? Opposed, none?
Sewer operating and capital funds. Sewer operating fund budget total, 1,926,600. Sewer capital fund budget, 1,197,400. Sewer fund revenue and expense budget, 3,124,000.
That needs a motion.
So moved.
Tom, second?
Second.
Neil, all in favor? Opposed? None? Oh, Victor, you opposed? Oh.
Other funds, dog license fund revenue and expense budget, 29,540. Parking fund revenue and expense budget, 100,000. Railroad fund revenue and expense budget, 164,124. Rental property fund revenue and expense budget, 11,700. Waveney Pool Fund revenue and expense budget, 568,800. Movie Theater Fund revenue and expense budget, 75,635.
Can I ask a point of clarification?
Yeah.
What is
I
that?
was
Yeah,
wondering.
We were trying to
exact
figure
same
that out.
question.
What-
I'm not sure if I
that's
know what
not-
that is either.
That's not the 800.
No.
That's something, that's not
It's a-
part of
That's
the
just cost of
800.
heating it or something?
Theater fund.
That is, so the expenses, you mean?
It's fund,
It's
it's revenue
expenses.
and
Oh, it's-
expense. Yeah,
Right, we do take rent in, that
Oh.
is 50,000.
You're right.
oh,
And
that's
there's
what it
property
is. Okay.
Cleaning, there's supplies, electricity, fuel.
Okay.
So
Oh, all right.
Okay.
It's revenue then.
There you
too.
go.
Thank you.
All right, total other funds budget, 949,799.
Need a motion.
So moved.
Yep, Amy, second?
Second.
Second, Victor, all in favor? Aye, opposed, none?
This completes the approval process by the Board of Finance for the proposed 2022 to 2023 fiscal budget. The recommendations for appropriations as approved by the Board of Finance will now be delivered to the selectmen for submission to the town council. The selectmen will also cause to be published once a week for 2 successive weeks, a notice of a meeting of the town council to act upon such recommendations.
All right, well, thank you, everyone.
No, I want you to.
Good job. So just to review where we are, I think we just said our expenses are up 4.6, our revenues are up 4.9. The mill rate in this budget with those assumptions would be a 1.5% increase. The mill rate would be 18.434 with these numbers. So I appreciate everyone's work. We cut almost $4 million out of the expenses. A lot of work went into this. I think we did a great job. I also have to compliment Board of Ed for just having a buttoned up budget. We had no issues with the operating really as of the middle of January. And everybody else, Tiger, tremendous work on everything, capital and operating. So thanks, everybody. Steve, over to you. Anything else? Do we have any line item transfers tonight?
we do several.
Yeah, we have them
Several.
on the.
Several,
gosh,
sorry.
it was on the-
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So I can share my screen if you want, but they are on your tablets as well.
Let me put them up on the screen.
Or anything on my tablet. I couldn't get anything on my tablet, Josh. Nothing. I got nothing on my tablet.
It was blank, right?
Blank.
I can look at it with you.
That's all right.
It shouldn't be.
I thought it was.
And so is it.
Okay, why don't you read them off?
Is it something we said?
Brian. We do have a small announcement. Bob Hamill and I are the first 2 $1,000 contributors to the private collection fund for the planetarium. So we're number 1 and 2. And so we're gonna, you know, you gotta create this private 501c or whatever, but, all right, so we were I didn't want to say it until the budget was passed. I didn't want to look conflicted in any way. But we gotta get the word out.
Find us.
You gotta get. Anyway, we wanted you to know that. So anyway.
Thank you. You'll have the first invitations to our demo. that
There you
we'll
go.
set up later on in the month.
We'll do it.
Thank you.
Make it accessible for seniors. You will be surprised how many would want to use it.
We're still relatively new.
It'd be
when you went to
cool.
high
It
school,
was,
right?
no,
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a hike.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What are these line item transfers?
So on your screen right
Oh,
now
geez.
are a total of
That's why I said it's on there.
43,000 of line item transfers.
Guys,
So on your screen, this is 43,000 of line item transfers just to review, not to approve
Okay.
this set. So they're mostly. small
Anything you want to
dollars.
highlight? Any concerns? Anything we need to?
Nothing really to highlight. These are all pretty standard line item transfers.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the board on any of those 43 line items that you've just studied and
Yes.
analyzed?
Okay.
And then on to the transfers that do need approval. Let's see.
Just read them off one at a time.
Sure. So there is a transfer in fire tax capital, which is consolidating monies from five projects into one project that is still in need of funding. That's the 17,604. As well as
We
just,
want to vote on them one at a time. How many are there altogether? You want to transfer?
so you have 1, 2,
like
6.
it's like 6 or 7.
Okay, we can do them together? Okay, why don't you just read from what to what and the amount?
Sure.
Let's just keep through. And if anyone has any questions, we'll stop after each one.
Sure. Then there's a 10,000 from salary OT training, 10,000 to salary OT within police. These are just because they're salary, 3,000 salary OT training to 3,000 training within police. Then there's the larger, which is the taking from salary contingency due to the passing of the 3 collective bargaining agreements for police, fire, and DPW. They were held on to this transfer until they were all put through. So it's $216,610.99 from salary contingency. Do you want me to read all of the line items that
I think everybody has it, unless there are other questions about the transfer. We did talk about that.
There are 2.
Which transfer?
The police
Oh, yeah. No, we talked.
or
about that.
salary.
Yeah, there's the salary contingencies. Then there is 78,000 from non-salary contingency to the building department for 220 Elm expenses, as well as 173,200 from non-salary contingency to outside contractors, as well as property cleaning for.
What
within
was it,
town
78,000 from where to where? It was from which,
From the non-salary contingency.
in which department?
What's that?
In which department? Like,
Oh, town buildings.
some buildings?
Yeah.
To cover
What-
220
what-
Elm expenses.
It's legal
Correct.
expenses.
Which
So
were,
there is a breakdown, and I'm not sure if Bill or Tiger want to speak to it a bit more. There is a memo for, this is for the 78,000.
Yeah.
I don't know if
That's
you want to
one of
go
the,
over it.
78,000 was for the 220 Elm Street. As you know, we purchased that back in January, and they converted it to a condo. And it was sold half it. So like any traditional condo, there's common fees to cover all the common expenses there. And so that's the amount we need to get us, but basically from January, because I covered a lot of it already in my operating, which added up. So from now till June 30th.
So it's like prepaid expenses, condo share
It's
expenses.
approximately about $12,000 a month for common fees covered, your traditional
Prepaid,
energy and
yeah.
all that stuff, fun stuff. And then as we get into next year, it's in the budgets and there'll go through some transitional periods then when the Board of Ed takes over too.
And so in the future, when that's gonna get budgeted, is that gonna show up on the Board of Ed's budget?
That's how you handle that. That's going to be,
Probably. I think it's going to be an in and out with them paying.
the revenue. So,
The revenue side of
right,
it.
so, the idea was to cover the bond debt and then any operating expenses on the Board of Ed side, their rent is greater than what the expenses would be over here. So my understanding was it's going to come to our side from the Board of Ed side as a revenue, and then it's going to be paid out of that revenue to cover those expenses. That's the way I understand it.
Okay.
Because technically the town is the landlord.
And where was that in their budget?
Right now, they're carrying, in their budget right now, they're carrying the full cost.
Right.
For where they are at present.
Right.
They did give their notice, so by March 1 of next year.
Okay.
They'll be vacating that. and
Be in
moving
the new
forward.
building.
At that point in time, they will no longer have to be paying rents where they are currently, and then they can start then through this process.
Let's go through this and then I have a question about that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so any other questions on the transfer? Everybody get that?
But it's for how many months then?
This is till June 30.
Oh, it's only June 30. Okay, so then we start over.
Next one.
It's on you. Let's see. So the last one is 173,200, also from non-salary contingency to 160,000 of it going to outside contractors and 13.2 thousand going to property cleaning. And again, Bill can speak to that.
Right, so we've incurred additional expenses this year for a lot of reasons. A lot of had to deal with energy costs, supply chain issues, labor issues, and just a rough summer last summer. In the amount of rain we got, driving rain, and we discovered some roof problems and leaks. So we've been hitting some of these out of my operating. We also lost, we had some power issues over at the firehouse over the summer. Worked with Eversource on it. Unfortunately, we burnt out some of the air conditioning units over there. So to get them back up and running, we hit my account for, I think it was about $30,000 to replace air conditioning units over at the firehouse. So that came out of my operating. It's actually 24th. Yeah, it was like $25,000. So we're looking to replenish that money and to get enough to carry me right now until June. I don't know if you have any specific questions.
Have we exhausted the contingency that we put in the budget last year? Then?
Well, the contingency is the general fund contingency. We don't get it in our departments.
Right.
So that's
So
where it is.
where do we
There's
stand
still a
on-
balance there.
No, this will run it pretty low, but there is still a balance there. Enough for these two, which I think is 240,000. I think there may be 280 or 260. I'm not sure off the top of my head exactly.
With 3 months to go.
Well, that's why you have a contingency.
No, we're gonna be out of budget. Won't be able to spend anymore.
That's why you have a contingency.
That's why I have a contingency. Okay, any other questions on the transfers? Okay, motion to approve.
So
Judy,
moved.
second. Tom, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none. Question. Board of Ed, should have asked before. Do we get any are the savings for, we said we don't want to be paying two rents. They're given notice. Are there any savings associated with them moving that we should be capturing in our budget?
Do we have a finalized rent number that they're going to be paying us?
No, we're still working through some of those questions.
Dan, is that anything you're, I just didn't know if we had any additional costs, or Kevin, I'm not sure if you're aware of any other additional costs or savings associated on the moving out of Locust over to Elm.
The superintendent's budget is almost $400,000 for rent at 39 Locust. And the debt service, as Linda had previously presented, was I think about 200,000 plus this additional operating amount. So he'll use his existing rent budget to cover those expenses when they move in March.
Okay. And it all washes, no savings, no other expenses, or?
There may be, I suppose, some small savings, but the plan was to, initially we talked about only having the debt service, but then we realized we had the operating expenses, which they could either do as a triple one that lease where they pay them, their utilities and their property management, et cetera, or basically the condo assessment, or we could charge it as rent.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? And a huge thank you You jumped into this process. It feels like you've been in for 2 years with all the input and ideas. You were amazing. I mean, I can't believe.
Is there?
We're not talking about that. That's
Where are you?
doesn't matter. She's busy. She's busy. In any event,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Thanks, Ann.
Thank you so much for everything you did. Tremendous. Kevin, thank you. I think we got the budget and over to town council.
Congratulations, Board of Finance. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Amy, second? Michael, good. All in favor?
All right.
Opposed, none? We're adjourned.
Good job.